All right, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing, Mel? Are you... Just a moment, administrative hold up. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this full council on Wednesday, the 26th of February at 6 p.m. here in Blacktown House. I am the chair of your council, Councillor Eleanor Rylance, and I'd like to welcome everybody, including people watching online, to this meeting this evening. Now, basic health and safety instructions. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building through the nearest fire exit by following the green running man signs above the doors and make your way to the rear of the car park. If you are in need of assistance leaving the building, please let me or anybody up here know, and we will assist you. The organiser of the meeting will tell you when it's safe to return. With the exception of the one confidential item at the end of the agenda, the meeting can be viewed live online on the Council's YouTube page and is being recorded and will be available on YouTube from the end of this meeting. The agenda and the papers have been published on the Council's website in advance of the meeting. Could councillors who are intervening please mention page numbers from the agenda pack so that we can all find ourselves in the agenda pack when you're trying to point to a detail. Now, meeting good practice, please only speak when the chair asks you to speak. Please switch the microphone on your desk when you are invited to speak and then switch it off again at the end of your intervention. Please turn all mobile devices to silent or off. If you've not already done so, please use your card to enter the building to log into the microphone on your desk. You probably know how to do that already, but if you are having trouble, please ask Andrew to help. Please, if I ask you to stop speaking, that is deadly serious, please stop speaking. Right, we're going to start this meeting by doing a roll call, and we will do declarations of interest at the same time because it assists the video technology in locating people, whereas if we're only answering our name, it doesn't have time to find us. So it enables us to be located and also identified and also to do our declarations of interest in one go. So we're now going to do the roll call and declarations of interest at the same time, please. So if you have any declaration that you want to make of anything that is on the agenda, please be ready to say it. If you discover during the course of the meeting that you should have declared an interest, say it then. It's never too late. If you have any questions about whether you should make a declaration, then please ask our monitoring officer, Melanie, for that information. Now, I'm going to hand over to Andrew, who is going to do the roll call. Please, can you confirm your presence by saying present, and also whether or not you have a declaration? Thank you. Andrew, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, councillors. Councillor Arnott.
Present, no interests.
Councillor Aurora Bailey.
Present, thank you. No interest.
Councillor Brian Bailey.
Present, Andrew, and no interest.
Thank you. Councillor Jess Bailey.
Present, and I'm not sure what interest I need to declare in the motion on notice about highways. I queried with the monitoring officer because I'm a Devon County councillor.
My advice, I've just sent you an email just to confirm my advice, sorry for the late circulation. My advice is that you need to declare an effects ORI, but you can remain in the room.
Thank you. I'd like to declare an effects ORI. Thank you.
Glad we could tidy that up. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow.
Present, no declarations that I'm aware of.
Councillor Blakey.
Present, one declaration regarding item 14. It's an effects NRI, and this relates to the community governance review for Cranbrook, and by reason of being a member of Cranbrook Town Council.
Thank you. And Councillor Bloxham.
Present, and again, affects NRI for item 14 as a member of Cranbrook Town Council.
Thank you. Councillor Bonetta.
Present, no interests.
Councillor Colin Brown.
Present, no interest to declare.
Councillor Jenny Brown.
Present, no interest I'm aware of.
Councillor Bruce.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Burrup.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Chapman.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Chubb.
Present, ORI, Devon County Councillor.
Councillor Bethany Collins.
Present and nothing to declare, thank you.
Councillor Roy Collins.
Present. I don't know about interest because the council has stopped my internet. I've had no internet
Right, Councillor Collins, thank you.
since
very
Friday.
much. Okay.
It's came tonight because I'm in here.
Okay.
The only way I can get internet is to
Councillor
sit
Collins,
outside in the
please.
cold after
Councillor
the meeting.
Collins.
Thank you.
Councillor Collins, thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Present, no interest to declare.
Councillor Dumper.
Present, no interest as far as I know.
Councillor Faithful.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Fernley.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Gazzard, please.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Haggerty.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Anne Hall.
Present, nothing to declare, thank you.
Councillor Matt Hall.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Hartnell.
Present and an affects ORI, which I think affects both motions as a Devon County Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
Present, affects NRI for agenda item 14 as a member of Cranbrook Town Council.
Councillor Hayward.
Present, no declarations, thank you.
Councillor Heath.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Hookway.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Howe. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, present, ORI on agenda item 22. Devon County Councillor.
Councillor Jackson.
Present, none from me, thank you.
Councillor Jeffreys.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Johns.
Present, thank you. I think I've got an ORI as I sit on Hattop for Highways, item 22, for East Devon District Council. And can I check that we all have a blanket dispensation for the, talking about the council tax and also talking about the devolution deal? Thank you.
Mel, please.
There is no need for a blanket dispensation. So because obviously all members would be affected and you have to be the decision makers, there is government guidance that makes it clear that you do not need a dispensation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Ledger.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Ving.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Loudon.
Present, no declarations. Thank you, Andrew.
Councillor Martin.
Present and no declarations, thank you.
Councillor Nicholas.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor O'Leary.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Olive. Councillor Parr.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Richards. Councillor Riddell.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Rickson,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Rylance,
Present, and I think I have an effects NRI in item 12, please, as a member of Broadcliff Parish Council. Thank you.
thank you. Councillor Smith,
Sorry, he sends apologies. I received a message from him earlier.
Councillor Toy,
Present, no declarations.
thank you. Councillor Westerman,
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Whibley,
Present, no declarations, thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Wilson sends his apologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Next up, we have apologies. Thank you very much for all your declarations of interest. Apologies, please, Andrew. Who do we have?
Okay, so we have apologies from Councillor Goodman, Councillor McKinder, Councillor Smith, Councillor McCullum, Councillor Wilson, and Councillor Ragg.
Are there any other apologies? Councillor Brown, please, you have an apology from somebody.
Councillor Ingham.
Councillor Ingham. Are there any other apologies from the room? Councillor Smith, did you mention Councillor Smith? Andrew? Yeah, okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. So next up, we have the minutes of the previous meeting. You've got them in front of you. You've had them in front of you. Does anybody have any comments or amendments they wish to bring to bear? Or are we happy to note these and move on? Do we have to vote on these? Okay. If you wish to, I'm moving to accept them from the chair. If you wish to accept the minutes, would you please raise your hands now? And if you want to reject them, raise your hands now. And abstentions? No. Oh, a couple of abstentions at the back of the room. But apart from that, carried. Thank you very much. Next up, public speaking. Do we have anybody registered to speak?
No, there are no members of the public registered to speak for the meeting tonight, Chair.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Matters of urgency. There are no matters of urgency for tonight. Announcements from Chair of Council and Leader of Council. I didn't think I had very many, and now it seems I have 4. Firstly, you may be wondering why Councillor Ledger sitting next to me. It's because, unfortunately, my Vice Chair can't make it, and so I needed a spotter in the room, because sometimes I can't see far to the end of the room. So he will be keeping track of who would like to speak. He's not Vice Chair. If I drop dead, he's not going to take over. Sorry. Not yet, anyway. Not until there's been a due democratic process, if needs be. Right. Second thing I wanted to say is that one of our number, Councillor Hayward, had received a national award. He's been nationally recognised for exceptional contributions to the local community and has been awarded, I believe, Independent Councillor of the Year. And he's received the Clarence Barrett Award. From the LGA Independent Group members, which I think is rather an amazing accolade. And those of you who know Councillor Hayward will know how much he does for the community. So I think that's very, very well deserved. So I'd like to congratulate Councillor Hayward on that award. So well done, Paul. Next up, I wanted to say that in the room we have the wonderful Gareth Boughton, who has been with us for I don't know how many years, but he has entirely reformed our waste and recycling system in his time here. It is his last day. He officially retired 1.5 hours ago, and he's still here. So I wanted to thank Gareth for everything he's done for our waste and recycling systems and everything we don't need to say, our waste and recycling systems are among the best in the country. And that has been under Gareth's stewardship over the last goodness only knows how many years. And I wanted to send him a heartfelt thanks. 63 is far too young to retire, Gareth. Just saying. But thank you for everything you've done for us, and thank you for everything you've done for the waste and recycling in East Devon. Jeff, did you want to say anything at this point or later? Okay, later. Lastly, and probably this is a little bit ironic now, as you see, we've got a monster agenda. So please, please, when you intervene, can you make it really count? I know Councillor Chubb's grinning in a sort of wry way. Please don't repeat anything somebody's just said. You can show your approval by voting for it later. So please, can we be as businesslike as possible on this absolutely enormous agenda? We've been terribly busy since early December, it turns out. I don't need to tell anybody that. Right, okay, Leader, do you have any announcements?
No, I think it's helpful to have none. Thank you, Chair.
I agree and heartily approve this message. Right, now moving on. Agenda item 7, confidential and exempt items. We have one item in this category, which will occur at the end of the agenda after the exclusion of press and public, and when the feed has been stopped. Right, where are we in the agenda? Hang on, sorry. Right, agenda item 8, to answer questions asked by members of the council pursuant to procedure rules 9.2. Right, I believe we had 3 questions. Councillor Faithful, did you have a follow-up to your question?
I've not had the answer yet.
Okay. Right, there was going to be a verbal answer. From the portfolio holder who's sitting next to me, it turns out. Please. Dan.
I have had an answer, Councillor Faithful, but I'm not happy with it. So what I'd like to do is send a written response to all members on the actual number. I'm just querying because the data that we've been given is 0, and that's not correct. We have sold homes in the last 5 years.
Are you happy with that?
Thanks, yes.
Promise.
Cheers.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Faithful. Question number 2, Councillor Brian Bailey, do you have a follow-up to your question?
Yes, Eleanor, I'd like to thank the portfolio holder for the written response, but my supplementary is, I appreciate his response, and why is it that I believe the fees will be going up for renting of pitches in various towns and villages, sometimes between up to 39%, and other places up to 54%. So it's a bit contrary to his answer. Thank you.
Right, so why the disparity of rises? Councillor Hook, were you able to answer that this evening?
Well, I can give a very brief answer, seeing as I only had this notice of this question tonight. The answer really relies upon the fact that pitch fees are not set within my portfolio, they're set within assets and by street scene. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, so possibly, follow up to the wrong person then. Councillor Colin Brown, you had the 3rd question. Do you have a follow-up, please?
Yeah, I appreciate the answer, but it would have been nice to send a copy of the letter to the group leaders that was asked for. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sure that can be forthcoming. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to intervene?
Well, like Councillor Hookway, I hadn't seen the question or the answer until about half an hour ago. So neither, to be honest, do I see the letter. So we need to sort something out here at this end.
Thank you.
Although obviously I know what was in the letter.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. That concludes item 8. So moving on to item 9, which is all the reports, which of all the things that we have been doing, all 19 sets of minutes. Where are we? Oh, yes, sorry. Sorry, I just remembered that because we have an officer here who has to get away, I have moved the order a little bit, and I probably should have announced that earlier. We're actually going to move up item 14 right to the head of the agenda because one of the officers has to go when she has been spoken and she has to speak. So we're actually now going to move to item 14, Mel.
Sorry, Chair, just to clarify, that officer isn't now here, but
Okay.
is watching the meeting.
Okay.
But we do have our external lawyers on the line in case there are any questions that we need them to answer. So
And are they
it
expected
would
to
be
address
really
it now?
helpful if we could bring it
Yes.
forward. That would be really helpful.
So
Thank you.
notwithstanding the fact that Katie Webb is not in fact here, with the lawyers are, so we probably need to do that one first anyway. So we are going to alter the order slightly, and we're going to do item 14 first, which is the Cranbrook Community Governance Review. I'm going to invite Councillor...
Number, page number.
Page number, thank you. That's a very good question. Hang on. Oh, 216. 216 to 226. I'll just give everybody 30 seconds to be ready. Councillor Fernley, is it crucial you intervene now? Okay.
I just wanted to declare an NRI, as you did for Broadcliffe Parish Council, for this item.
Thank you, Councillor Fernley. Councillor Fernley declaring an effects NRI as a member of Broadcliffe Parish Council. Thank you. Okay, so, right, has everybody found their place in the agenda? Yeah, so I'm going to invite Councillor Jackson to present this report, please, Councillor Jackson, and propose its recommendations.
Yeah, lovely, no problem. Thank you, everyone. This basically establishes the principle that we want to proceed with a governance review of the Cranbrook area. This doesn't predetermine any kind of outcome. It simply states that we think there are suitable reasons to go ahead and review that boundary. Now, this is something that this council considered a little while ago, but at that point, the expansion areas of Cranbrook had been yet to be formally adopted. So we're now at a point where Cranbrook Parish Council want us to look at that again. So that's the basis for this report. Open up to officers to introduce further and the chair to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. So, Mel, since you are here, would you please tell us the officers' view on this? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'll just briefly present it, and then obviously if there are any questions then between myself and Andrew Wood, then we'll answer those together. So yes, so basically this is a request as the portfolio has said for a community governance review. That is very much a discretionary decision for you, so it's entirely up to you as to whether you wish to go ahead with the community governance review. But as the portfolio holder has said, she's outlined the reasons for that. What you have in front of you is the draft terms of reference that would effectively kickstart the process if you wish to go ahead, and the timetable that we're looking to work to in that proposed community governance review, and the individuals that we would be looking to consult as part of that process. Happy to answer any questions that members have.
Thank you very much, Mel. Right, so Councillor Jackson, did I hear you proposing the recommendations?
No, but I absolutely am happy to do so.
Okay, so we have a proposer. Now, do we have anybody wishing to second the recommendations before we move into debate? Is that all the people with their hands up right now? Are you hoping to second the recommendations? I think Councillor Barlow very emphatically wishes to second the recommendations. Am I right? Yes. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Right, so let's move into debate. Have you got any questions of the portfolio holder or of Mel about the report? Councillor Faithful, please, first.
So the people who will be consulted on are the people who are presently outside of Cranbrook in the expanded area. Is that correct?
Mel, can you answer
It's
that?
everyone that would be potentially affected by any of the proposals, so absolutely.
Can I come back? So
just quickly,
the people actually inside of present Cranbrook are not consulted. It's about the people who are in the expanded area.
It would be both. It would be both. So,
both? Yeah.
Would anybody that would be affected, because they'll be affected as well. If there's any changes in boundaries, they would be affected by those changes.
Okay, I think that answers that question. Right, who else would like to speak? Councillor Burrup, please.
Thank you, Chair. I note that it's due to take a year. Is there any way that this can be, brought in quicker than a year?
I think that may be a question for Melanie again.
We will obviously endeavour to do it as quickly as we can, but it is quite a long and detailed process with obviously first stage proposals and final recommendations, and obviously all of the stages of consultation. So we will do it as quickly as we can, but the reason that we've put 12 months is that's the length that these things often take. But absolutely, we know how important this is, and we will endeavour to do it as expeditiously as possible.
Thank you, Mel. Any more questions, comments? No, I can't see anybody. Was there anybody else? Councillor Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. Might I make a very small amendment to recommendation 3 which currently reads that delegated authority be given to the monitoring officer to make amendments to the terms of reference as are necessary and appropriate. That with the proposer and seconder's agreement, that after monitoring officer, we add the words in conjunction with the relevant portfolio holder. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Jackson, since you proposed these recommendations, are you willing to accept that as an amendment?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, Councillor Barlow, are you willing to accept that as the seconder, as an amendment?
Yes.
Okay, right. So in that case, recommendation 3 would therefore read what Councillor Hayward just said, which is in conjunction, after monitoring officer, in conjunction with the relevant portfolio holders. So that's what we would be voting on when we come to vote on these, after we have debated as much as we want to debate. Okay, thank you very much, Andrew, for adding that in. If we could put that up on the screen just before voting on it, that would be helpful, but I think most people will have, it's not excessively complicated. Right, so does anybody have any more questions or things that they would like to ask, or things that even the lawyers might be able to answer because they are on the line? No? Everybody ready to go to a vote on this then? Fantastic. Mel?
Sorry, can I just clarify in the wording of that change? It was just in consultation with the portfolio holder, wasn't
It was
it?
in conjunction with, he said.
Yeah, I use the word in conjunction with, but
It needs to be in consultation
with,
'cause-
as long as there's
Yeah.
some interaction. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. If we could just clarify.
Right,
correct
so
that, that's okay.
Councillor Jackson, are you happy with that? With it?
Yeah,
with being-
that's absolutely fine.
And Councillor Barlow? Yeah. Okay, fantastic, thank you. So that's actually in consultation with rather than in conjunction with now. Thank you very much. Satisfies everybody. Monitoring officer included. Great. Right, so let's, Councillor Brown, please. Councillor Jenny Brown.
So is this taking in neighbouring parishes? Will they become part of Cranbrook then, or will they keep their own identity?
I think that might be a question for Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, so essentially it looks at everything in the round, but it would be looking to see where the settlement boundaries, defined communities would be within that area. So if a community has got its own defined identity, then that will factor into that equation, just as Cranbrook is now expanding, so its identity will also need to be taken into consideration in those reviews. But it covers all sorts of things as well, like the governance of those areas, so how many councillors should sit there, should it be warded, all sorts of things around there. So it's more than just the boundaries of any particular settlement.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Brown. It is a consultation. Remind everybody can feed into the consultation. Right, are there any more questions, or can we move to a vote on the recommendations as amended? Okay, I'm going to suggest that we vote on these recommendations now because I'm not seeing any great enthusiasm in the room for asking any more questions. Right, so as amended, if you are in agreement with the recommendations, would you please raise your hand now? If you wish to vote against them, would you please raise your hand now? And if you wish to abstain, please raise your hand now. And that is very widely carried. Not unanimous, but very widely carried. Thank you very much, everybody. And I suppose we can let the lawyers go home now.
Yeah, I'm just telling you.
Thank you. Right, now, it will be helpful if I turn to the correct page in my script. Right, next item is, we go back to actual page, item 9, which is pages 29 to 164, please. Page 29. Right, so we have multiple reports. I want to say 25 sets of minutes. As we're developing this new way of laying out the agenda, the recommendations have been extracted from, where there are recommendations, they've been extracted from the reports and put into a separate agenda item. So what we're voting on at the moment is the minutes which don't contain recommendations. So I'm going to presume that you've read them all. Are there any questions? Are there any amendments that you think should be brought? Or are you happy to vote on them? It's a lot of pages to catch up if you haven't read them already. And there were a lot of them. Right, okay, well, I'm going to presume that everybody is happy to vote on these. So, with that in mind, I'm going to move them from the chair. If you are willing to accept these recommendations, would you please raise your hand now? Not recommendations, sorry, reports, minutes. Get there in a minute. And if you want to vote against them, would you please raise your hand now? And if you want to abstain from voting on them, please raise your hand now. That's largely carried, but not unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. Called minutes. There are no called minutes, which is miraculous. Thank you very much for all your questions in the previous items, and we have duly noted all the minutes. Thank you. Now, moving on to item 10, which is the pay policy statement. It's the recommendation that has come out of Personnel Committee. I'm going to move it from the chair since I chair that committee. The reason for the recommendation is that we have to have a pay policy statement, so it's not optional. I presume that you have read the report. Are there any questions? Actually, Mel, do you have anything to say about the report since we have lost Joe?
I don't know if the portfolio holder wants to say anything, or you as chair. Sorry, it was you as chair. Bearing in mind you were at the personnel committee, but if not, happy to.
Do you have anything you want to say, Councillor Loudon?
No, Chair. As you say, this is something we have to do each year. It is very similar, if not virtually the same as this time last year. So I'm happy to second.
Okay, fantastic. So you don't actually need to second, but it's good to have the support of the portfolio holder as well. So if anybody wishes to say anything about these or ask any questions, please raise your hand now. No, we're okay. Right, if you're ready to vote on them then, if you wish to accept the pay policy statement for 25-26, would you please raise your hand now? And if you want to reject it, would you please raise your hand now? And if you want to abstain, please raise your hand now. That's largely carried. Thank you very much. Right. That is carried, thank you. Agenda item 11, the corporate peer review update. The portfolio holder, Councillor Loudon, is going to present this report and he's going to propose its recommendations. And after he has done that, I think Tracy Hendren or maybe Mel might have some things to add. So Councillor Loudon, the floor is yours. Page number, 170. 170. It's 170 to 203. Councillor Loudon, go for it.
Thank you, Chair. This won't be the first time that colleagues have received an update and progress report on the peer challenge that took place literally 12 months ago. You had, as council, a report back in July, which you approved, and we have had an action plan that's been ongoing since we received the report from the original review back, as I say, last February. The peer review team came back in November to look at our progress, to monitor us against our action plan, to monitor us against what they had suggested to us and what they'd found last February. I think it's all been incredibly positive throughout the last 12 months. The team then presented a report. You've got that attached to our report here, along with the list of actions and their current status. That's also attached. So, Chair, I would be very positive in moving the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Loudon. Now, Tracy and Mel, do you have anything you wish to say or add to that?
I was just going to add that, as you'll appreciate, with local government reorganisation, sort of our peer challenge actions and our council plan actions are something that we're obviously reviewing just to make sure that they're all things that we should be continuing with in light of local government reorganisation. So we are doing that piece of work as an ELT at the moment. So some things will be tweaked and evolved, and therefore when you get further iterations and updates, there may be some changes. So it's just to make you aware of that, really.
Thank you, Mel. Tracy, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think just from my point of view, it's just a huge thank you to the officers involved and the members that have worked alongside the peer review team. And we're really, really impressed with the results that we've received.
Thank you very much to everybody who made this happen and arranged for it to happen. I know there's been an awful lot of work going on in the background. Councillor Loudon, you want to come back in?
just apologies to Tracy. I should have said thank you to colleagues. Obviously, it's been a lot of positive hard work that's been put in to pull the actions together.
Thank you very much, Councillor Loudon. I think we can all agree that it's looking very positive, really. It's just a shame we're about to disappear. Oh well, c'est la vie. Right, now, Councillor Loudon has proposed the recommendations. No, yes, you will get the chance to speak. Would anybody like to second the recommendations? That's Councillor Levine, I think. Is that Councillor Levine? Yes, it is. Okay, so Councillor Levine has seconded them. Now, we're going to move into debate. Now, Councillor Gazard, you were first, I think. Yep. Thank you, Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Paul. Apologies if the answer to my question is in the report, but I only received the report today, so I've skimmed through it. Is there anywhere in the report where it discusses how we're going to address how we move forward with Alderman's, what do we call them? Alderman's thank you. Whereas before we used to have aldermen and alderwomen on our blackboard, but I understand all the reasons why we scrapped it. But we do have many of our colleagues out there, especially from East Devon, that have given a lot of service to this council and have retired prior to the last election. And I think it is rather remiss of us that we haven't done anything for them. So I'm just wondering whether, is there anything in the report that's addressed how we're going to move forward with recognising and rewarding councillors that have given substantial service to this council over many years? Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Gazard. I think Councillor Loudon wanted to come in on that.
Thank you, Councillor Gazard. Attached to the agenda, and you may not have had a chance to read them, but they have been circulated previously, certainly as part of previous council minutes and agendas, as well as cabinet agendas. But in particular, I take you to Appendix A, which is the initial feedback report from the visit last February. And the short answer to your question is nothing in there whatsoever.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Gazard. Are there any more questions? Struggling to see to the end of the room. No. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So the recommendations are on the front page, and they are that we note the report and the positive conclusions provided by the LGA. So if you are happy to note those recommendations, would you please raise your hand now? And if you would like to reject the recommendations, would you please raise your hand now? And if you would like to abstain, please raise your hand now. That is very largely carried. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who was involved in this, because I know it's been a huge body of work in itself. Right, next up, Councillor Todd. Councillor Olive, sorry, do you have any declarations of interest to make?
Apologies, I'm late, Chair, and no declarations.
Thank you very much. Right, item 12, as if we didn't have big enough items already. Item 12, devolution and local government reorganisation, which has kept us busy for a bit. Right, who is actually presenting this? Oh, Andy Wood. Oh no, the Leader of the Council is presenting it, sorry. Councillor Arnott,
I'll happily
you are presenting it.
I'll happily kick it off.
Please kick it off.
Chair. But I'll do it briefly in the spirit of the evening. I hope the report is self-evident, and thank you, Andy, for that. I think it's worth noting for our minutes that the management has kept, I hope, all councillors in real touch with what's been going on an almost weekly basis. There was a fantastic member briefing. Forgive me, because time has just gone mad at the moment. It could have been last week, it might have been the week before. Very well attended, very well explained. Tracy and Andy put out an excellent bulletin for members, so I hope that's been of some use. It is, as they say on the news, a fast-changing picture, even faster than Donald Trump and Elon Musk, I'd say, but we're not meeting fascists, obviously. So but I think the main thing to note, and you've all been notified, is we'll have an extraordinary council on this on the 19th of March. And I don't know if Andy has anything else to say, but happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. And I think our thanks go out to all the officers and all the members who have been involved in this hectic process since the 16th of December, just before Christmas. And I don't know if I publicly remembered to say this last time, but thank you very much for essentially donating your Christmases to this. Right. Andy, do you have anything you want to add? Andy has nothing he wants to add. Right. Leader, you presumably have proposed the recommendations, yes?
I have. I think we're just noting the report, actually.
Yes, we're noting the contents of the report.
Yeah,
so does anybody wish to second that? Councillor Barlow, you seconding? No? Okay, hang on a second. Councillor Loudon, you wish to second. Okay, so now properly proposed and seconded. Now we can move into debate. So Councillor Barlow had his hand up very eagerly first. Councillor Barlow, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder what is being done for local councils, the parish councils, because to me, the one legacy we should be leaving is to make sure that the assets we have are left locally, if we can, rather than be left in a big pool of a larger, expanded county unitary council. And I just think that we should be advising and talking to our parish and town councils to see how we can help them. It's all very well sorting out where we might go or where the next district or whatever they're going to call it is going to be, but certainly the assets and the ability to work things out on a local basis, I think, is something we should be concentrating on a lot more, which, to be honest, I don't think anything's happened at the town council parish. I keep getting asked, but I can't really tell them, and our update this evening is not exactly much of an update.
So, yeah, I'm happy to take that, Chair, which is that I can confirm that we will be writing to all parish and town councillors, we hope, later this week. So that is happening. I think that's a reasonable timescale given all the other priorities. I have been in any number of meetings with the chair of the Devon Association of Local Councils. In fact, I was in a Team Devon one that might have been on Tuesday or the previous Tuesday. I simply can't remember. So they should be feeding information back as well. On the substantive point that Councillor Barlow makes, I entirely agree that whilst what we will be able to do is inform and advise parish and town councils before this absurd 21st of March submission date, we can't consult. We just don't have the time to formally consult, and nobody is doing it. And I'm afraid that's how the government has set the rails for us here. But if you remember when we discussed this at full council, we did have a resolution there that we would definitely, moving forward, fully involve parish and town councils. So that stands, and that is what we will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would say it's probably in stark contrast to the white paper, which makes barely any mention of towns and parishes, although we know how important they are. Andy, I think you wanted to come in as well, didn't you?
Thank you, Chair. So just to add a little bit of detail to that. So our focus has been on briefing both members of staff and members, councillors to date. That will conclude tomorrow with a further session at the Manstone Depot in Sidmouth. On Friday, we're hoping to get the email out to all parish and town councils, taking a lead actually from the local plan consultation, an online meeting with a presentation and a Q&A session. And that hopefully to be before the 21st of March, so we can provide a full update on the interim plan as well, Chair.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any more questions? I imagine there'll probably be quite a lot. Oh, Councillor Matt Hall, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the opportunity to speak even at this early stage of local government reorganisation, as this is the ideal opportunity to raise what I believe to be three important issues, with each having an accompanying question for the leadership. Local government reorganisation is, of course, far more than drawing lines on a map, with issues needing to be addressed which can take considerable time, much debate, and triple checking. So 1, from our own comms, in the press, and of course acknowledging the somewhat unrealistic timeframe for local government reorganisation from the government, I am somewhat concerned that the phrase "at pace" is too often being used. What is essential for Devon is that local government reorganisation is done properly rather than quickly. Even at this early stage, I have not heard mention of what I consider to be the important issue of creating a shadow authority. For those that have not heard this phrase before, in essence, a somewhat politically balanced small group is created in the year or so before the new authority comes into being, which has the sole purpose of getting everything ready to be legally compliant from day one. No disrespect to anybody that is currently involved, but within this council there is considerably more knowledge, expertise and experience. Can the leader confirm if such talks have started with regards to creating such a group? Number 2, the council should be rightly proud of many
Councillor
of its...
Hall,
Yes.
I think the leader wishes to answer that question first, if that's okay.
Yes,
Your
of course.
first question, yeah, please.
Thanks, Joe. I thought otherwise people will forget what the first question was by the time we get to the third one. So I agree with Councillor Hall that the timescale for the initial submission by the 21st of March is not credible. And this has been communicated repeatedly to government by us, and by us I mean all districts, and joint statements will come out to that effect. But we have been set a series of exam questions, and we have not been asked, we have been required to answer them. At pace is indeed an unattractive expression, but it unfortunately does apply in these circumstances. At the moment, and following through on Council's resolution, the CEO and I are taking the lead for EDDC in discussions with all the other councils. However, our Director of Place, Andy, is present and provides key advice and information not only for our council, but actually for all the districts in a working group of 7 of the councils, Exeter not involved, which were directed to answer the 21st of March question, and I've been asked to chair that group. Our Director of Legal Services is also involved in many of the internal discussions, as is our S151. As Councillor Hookway said at Cabinet the other day, the future role of an interim authority, a shadow authority, is absolutely critical. And I agree with Councillor Hall and with Councillor Hookway that that will be part of the work post-March as we prepare for the full submission in November. Internally, members have been kept abreast, as have officers, with regular bulletins. But with March just weeks away, I would not wish to commit to wider involvement beyond Council and Cabinet, though subject to officer advice in the view of the Chair, the Overview Committee may be a place to widen Council involvement after March the 21st, if we wish to seek something like that. Thank you.
Councillor Hall, back to you, please. Your
Thank
second
you.
question.
Question 2. This council should be rightly proud of many of its existing policies. Would the leader agree with me that committees such as overview and/or scrutiny committees should be tasked as a matter of urgency to check through and update those leading policies, as these policies, which have proven to be work and just, should be forming the backbone of the new unitary policies, i.e. they should be an exemplar for the council that moves forward, rather than all this great work being potentially wasted.
Thank you, Leader. I think that you then.
I would absolutely agree with that question. As I said earlier, I think there's a serious role, certainly for overview in this, but I think rather than committing to that specifically tonight, I think I probably need to take some officer advice, bearing in mind also the piece of work which may involve us aligning with other councils, but I do note positively Councillor Hall's suggestion.
I think Mel would like to come in on that, monitoring officer, please.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that with the Somerset experience, just to clarify that there, a joint scrutiny committee was set up to oversee local government reorganisation. So that is a piece of work I'm sure that will come in time, but it's a little bit early stages for that at this moment.
Thank you, Mel. And Councillor Hall, your third question, please. Is it faster than the first 2?
I shall gabble. Finally, and I feel most importantly for our residents, that again through our existing committees, who meet more regularly than, say, the Capital Allocations Panel, every agreed future finance project, and there are many, should be double-checked and moved forward as a matter of urgency. Once the new unitary is formed, all the money collected in East Devon for the residents of East Devon will almost certainly be dumped in a central pot, with the area's councillors certainly losing much in the way of control over its spending, and it's more likely that some of this money will be spent out of area. Will the leader, in conjunction with the respective chairs of these committees, investigate this work as a matter of urgency?
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Is that another question for you, Leader? I think
Well,
it is.
I'm happy to take it. And I think at the moment, like the previous question, I thank you for the suggestion. But I think we will need to take officer advice on this and develop that policy as it goes. It's not as if every councillor in the whole of Desmond hasn't worked out for themselves that they're sitting on some kind of reserves, some kind of assets, and that they are concerned to maximise the benefit for their own local residents in the time left before their own council is abolished. How to get there and how that road is paved, we don't know yet, but it's obviously a priority.
Thank you, Leader. Next up, we have Councillor Jackson, please.
Thank you. It was just to pick up on Councillor Barlow's point about engagement with the parish councils. There's a piece of work that the comms team are looking at the moment to give a little bit more structure to our engagement with parish councils. We've done some work in recent history which has improved that, but it's fair to say we've got work to do there still. And there are quite a few initiatives across the whole council which engage with parish councils. The local government reorganisation is one element of that, but I think if we can improve that dialogue in the long term across all areas of the council, it'll put us in a best position to make sensible decisions as and when we need to for local government reorganisation as well.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Next up, we have Councillor Bruce, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one for the Leader. Given the lack of consultation, is this not in breach of a legal requirement?
Leader.
Well, I probably ought to defer to Mel on that. I think conversely, actually, Alistair, what we have been at pains to show and kept records of is multiple meetings with all of the other districts and borough in the area and with the unitary authorities. So take as an example of just one. Again, I think it was 3 weeks ago, it might have been 4, when Plymouth and Torbay and all of the districts and Exeter were in the room for the first time. And one of the reasons for that is a sincere effort to find collaborative methods going forward and some agreement. The other, obviously, is it does tick a box around consultation. In terms of consultation prior to November, I'm pretty sure we will be required to show that we've consulted with a wider community than that. But as I said earlier, the timing doesn't really allow it at the moment.
I think we haven't chosen the timetable. Mel, you wanted to come in on this as well?
Just to add to that, the government have consultation in their timetable, so we obviously submit our business case and then they will consult. I think it's in the timetable for January 2026 sort of time. So whether that's the degree of consultation that you as members would want is another matter, but there will be a consultation process.
Thank you, Mel. Right, Councillor Barlow, please.
Thank you, Chair. Much as it's great that we are obviously leading this and our great leader is leading this as well, I just wonder, with our head of legal, our CEO, Andrew Wood and others there, are we missing out as a council while all the others are getting on with their jobs?
Is that for the Leader? Yeah.
I'll take that. Can you clarify? So if it's any help, obviously all the other CEOs and head of legals and finance officers in all of the councils are involved in one way or the other. We have a working group which will be very temporary, which we are delighted that Andy is our director of place. He forms a sort of hub, but leading the information that's coming into that working group is obviously the chief executives of all the councils. What we needed to find was somebody who made sure, come March the 21st, that nobody had forgotten anything effectively, and so that's the role that Andy's playing. So at the moment, it's I don't want to speak for Andy, but it's not overstretching our resource at this stage. I note that Andy's looking firmly at the desk.
Somewhat reddening. Do you want to say, you don't want to say anything? No. Right, next up we have Councillor Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. Following on from Councillor Jackson's point, in a part Councillor Barlow's point, every member here goes to their town and parish councils. Probably, I hope, has good working relationships with the chairs and the clerks and the officers of those councils. So if they see that those councils aren't discussing Devo or have an information deficit, then by all means encourage, talk to the chair and talk to the clerk, ask that items are agendaed so that their residents, because there is a lack of information at town and parish level because they haven't been considered. They weren't considered in the white paper. They're considered a sort of an ancillary element, something to be considered at the tail end. And Councillor Barlow's quite right. They are intrinsic at local government. They are the lowest tier, but they do a huge amount of the work. So if your town and parish council isn't having DEVO and LGR, or acronyms, on the agenda, make a suggestion that they do. And then through the information that's disseminated here, when you give your reports, disseminate that down further. And that's how we maintain that flow of information. DALC will do their bit, the LGA will do their bit, the Clerks Professional Association, the SLCC, they'll do their bit. And I think that's how all of us collectively keep all of our residents abreast, especially the ones who don't dial in and listen to this meeting, which is probably 99% of them. But they might come to a town and parish meeting, they'll read your ward member reports. So just keep it going. The other point I wanted to make, which really comes back to the minister's letter of the 5th of February, where he, set out the timeline and encouraged, the collegiate approach. There is a line here, the penultimate paragraph. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to work together to put local government in your area on a more sustainable footing, etc., etc. I think the key there for me is that needs good faith. That needs good faith from all the authorities working to work in a collegiate and collaborative way. And if any of the authorities are acting not in good faith, I think that needs to be dealt with quite robustly by the leaders, by the CEOs, who all have very good working relationships, to explain that they can't withhold information. They can't try and, put a circle around their little silos because they think they're going to get an upper hand or gain some other benefit by not sharing data. This is a once in a lifetime, once in a generation opportunity, and I'll personally be very upset if any of the authorities do not willingly share data that helps create the framework for what appears to be the forward motion that the government intends. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Of course, we as members also play a valuable role in passing on information, particularly to parishes that like to receive information straight from their ward members rather than accessing it by different methods. We all have potentially parishes like that. Leader, you want to come back in?
Yes, and I will distribute this letter to all members any minute, but a very helpful letter to the Minister from James McInnes, the leader of Devon County. So when we met as Team Devon earlier this week, quite possibly the end of last week, everybody agreed that what we've been asked to do is nigh on impossible before March, but we've got to do it. But James has written to ask for some clarifications and some understandings around what the government intend. So he wants to clarify on our behalf in this letter whether March the 21st is a decision point. In other words, will the government, given we know that various different ideas will go in, Will the government knock back at that stage, some of them, or will they provide feedback? And that's absolutely critical, because what we know from county is they will not, and that is fair enough in my view, they are unlikely to come to a position by the time they have their debate on the 20th of March, where they wish to put forward one plan for the county. So they have asked some very good questions, and fair play to James, and I'll distribute this letter to everybody in a second. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Okay. Oh, Councillor Brian Bailey, you're up next, please.
Thank you. I'm not too sure if this is the right time to ask a question, but if it's not, I'm sure you'll stop me on that.
I certainly shall.
Rest assured. Sure you will. I'm concerned, along with a lot of other people in this room and our residents, about the amount of debt from the regional areas, which Councillor Arnott's been talking about, has been working well, which is good news. But collectively, the regional debt from all those authorities is going to be loaded onto the new authority. I was wondering if anything could be done to minimise the amount of debt that's passed on, because otherwise the new authority is going to start life bogged down by a considerable amount of debt. So may I suggest that we as an authority don't borrow any more large amounts of money unless it's absolutely essential. Thank you.
So Brian,
Sorry. Please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry. We've made that point very strongly. It's first of all, it's not clear, say at County, which we know holds the largest debt, what the quantum of that is, we don't know. What was hugely disappointing in the letter of Councillor Hayward, help me, was it the 8th of February, the 2nd of February, something like that? Was it the letter from government? You had the right date there. But in that letter of the date to be confirmed by Councillor Hayward, government were explicit that they were not going to provide any more money coming down from government to cover. In other words, what they weren't going to do, if all the effort had been gone to create these new unitaries, they weren't going to create a blank slate. They weren't going to clear the debt. And that is really alarming, because it is the view of a number of senior officers that unless something happens around that, these new unitaries could be issuing Section 114 notices, I think it is, of being non-viable within a couple of years. So something does have to give them, but that's very much in everybody's mind, Brian, absolutely. Yeah.
He sounds like he's on the case. Everybody sounds like they're on the case. Thank you for that question, Brian Bailey. Right, are there any more questions? Loads of questions, but no answers. Would you like to ask a question, Councillor Johns?
Thank you. Yes, so basically, I sit on St Mary Town Council as well, and I fully appreciate that all of this from the government, their wonderful idea of dumping everything on all the tiers below them, is their way of saving money. So that I fully understand, I get it completely, etc. But all they've done is dump it on other tiers. And we're going to have a unitary authority, which has been pointed out. There's nothing stopping the other councils running up massive debts, and when it becomes a unitary authority, the unitary authority is going to have to pick up the ball and deal with it all, etc., as has been pointed out. The town and parish councils, who don't have the same resources as district and county councils, are going to end up to their eyeballs in it. And currently, my understanding is town and parish councils aren't even being considered, not by the district council level, but by the levels above. They're just going to have to suck up whatever gets dumped on them at a later date. And I'm appalled by it, if I'm 100% honest, not at this level, but when we're told things like, as Councillor Hayward quite rightly said earlier, this should be on the agendas for town and parish councils. It is on the agenda for the majority of town and parish councils, but what exactly are we supposed to be discussing when we're not included in any of the discussions? So when I said there's lots of questions, but there's very few answers, it's because there are no answers to give out. Because it's just been dumped on us at the last minute and told that we have to do it. Your homework needs to be in by yesterday. But we haven't actually given you any of the parameters of the answers you have to give in. I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
So I mean, I've been going to my parishes and saying, we don't actually know what it means for towns and parishes yet, but in all likelihood, there will be more tasks coming your way. So we're still living in uncertainty, I think, Leader, aren't we?
Well, I agree with every word Councillor Johnson you have said. And it's kind of worse than that, and even more stupid, that if you do go to these unitaries, and these are all ifs still, because you never know, do you? But if it happens, and then it is certain responsibilities are pushed down into the towns and parishes, they will have to be beefed up. They will have to be. And what do you do then? You reinvent the second tier of government that the government is trying to abolish. It is preposterous.
Okay, thank you for that question, Councillor Johns. I can understand why you felt a little bit of despair ahead of it. Councillor Faithful, you're up next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to point out, I'm sure everyone's aware, that parish and town councils do not have a limit on how much they can increase their council tax by.
And with that thought, we'll leave it hanging. Yes, leave that thought right there. Right, now, are there any more questions or... I mean, as you can see, I think anybody who's involved in this process is kind of operating very slightly in the dark at the moment because we just don't know what it's going to look like. But we're answering questions. I think all the questions are being answered as to the best of our knowledge at the moment. Right. Has anybody got any more questions for anybody, or shall we move to voting on these? So we're only noting the contents of the report. And asking for an additional report to come forwards with the proposed interim plan. So I'm going to move these from the chair. No, hang on, they've already been moved, the recommendations, haven't they? Sorry. They've been proposed and seconded quite duly by the leader and by Councillor Loudon. So if you are in favour of accepting this recommendation and the request for an interim report, would you please raise your hand now? And if you are against that, would you please raise your hand now? And if you want to abstain, would you please raise your hand now? And that is unanimous, I think. Thank you very much, everybody. So yes, so obviously information will come forward as and when we have it. I'm just going to log back into my iPad. Right, bless you. Agenda item 13, the East Devon Culture Strategy. Let me find, where are we? No, I'll find the right page on my script as well. Right. I'm going to invite Councillor Hookway, who is a portfolio holder for culture, leisure, sport and tourism. How many more things can they sort of put onto this portfolio? To present the report and propose the recommendation therein. Now, you are on pages 209 to 215, please. Councillor Hookway, take it away.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so members, this is a recommendation from Cabinet that an additional £15,000 is provided from the General Fund to meet the requirements of funding Screen Devon initiative to the sum of £10,000 and an additional funding of £5,000 to the Villages in Action as set out in recommendations 1 and 2.
Whose device is speaking? Oh, has somebody got their screen reader on? Just turn the volume down, turn the volume down. Right, we have a small kerfuffle at the back there. Thank you very much for killing that. Right, so let's go back to Councillor Hookway, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So yes, so £10,000 for the Screen Devon initiative. This Screen Devon initiative is to, working with other councils, is to promote Devon as a location for filmmaking with international film production companies. It's a similar thing that's done by Screen Northern Ireland and Screen Yorkshire and so on. The initiative has been organised by Exeter University, and in the initial launch we've discovered that there were a large number of people involved in the filmmaking business living in Devon but not working in Devon. And so we believe there's great potential. We also believe there is significant potential with economic development because filmmaking uses a large number of people on a whole range of trades. And this ties in very nicely with our aim to try to keep people working within Devon and not leaving. So there is significant opportunity here. I can't say much more than that. Some of you may be aware that there was a film production recently in East Devon. I can't give you any figures for that at all, sadly, because we're under contract to be confidential until the film is released sometime in the future. Villages in Action, some of you in certain wards will be very well aware of Villages in Action and the excellent work that is done by Wendy van der Plank. We feel that an additional £5,000 is wholly justified in supporting the excellent work that Villages in Action do. So I therefore propose the recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hookway. And coming from an area which does have Villages in Action activity, I heartily agree with what your comments about the value of Villages in Action, bringing cultural events to really sometimes quite isolated areas. Right, now, who's it? Andy Wood. Andy, if Andy's here to answer questions about this report, I believe, but you don't want to say anything at this point, do you? Okay, so would anybody, so Councillor Hookway has proposed the recommendation, which is to grant £15,000. Would anybody like to second that? Councillor Bruce, is that a seconding? Okay, seconded by Councillor Bruce. So it is duly proposed and seconded. We're going to move into debate. So who would like to ask? So first of all, we have Councillor Davey, please, and then we have Councillor Jenny Brown. Councillor Davey first.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd be failing in my role as cultural champion if I didn't put in a plug for this. We had a very exciting report to the Arts and Culture Forum outlining the huge potential and exciting opportunities that the Screen Devon scheme offers for the whole of Devon. But I think obviously living in the prettiest part of Devon, we are in a place to capitalise on that. I'm sure some of you watched the recent Miss Austen series, and I don't know if anybody saw the set that was shot in Sidmouth, but it bore no relation to any version of Sidmouth that any of us knows, and it would have been nice if they'd either relocated it somewhere that was more appropriate to the kind of backdrops they obviously wanted to use, or actually acknowledged what Sidmouth looks like. There is a lot of potential. I think we have some fantastic locations for screen in Devon, and obviously we're only contributing a part of this. If you look, we're only contributing 10,000 out of 72,000, I think it is. Everybody's kind of chipping in on this one, and I think it's a very exciting opportunity, and I look forward to seeing it grow. Likewise, Villages in Action, fantastic initiative that's been going for a number of years. Does some wonderful productions and touring companies going to small villages and giving them cultural opportunities that they just would not get otherwise. And often those are very interactive as well, and that the whole community can get involved, and that they really help to bring communities together. So I think it's money well spent and great opportunities for both those initiatives.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Jenny Brown, please, you're next.
Thank you. Right, yeah, Villages in Action, brilliant. I know them well. Am I right that Screen Devon was only set up last year? So are we, again, going to be investment angels? Is this what East Devon does? Because are we going to start having another situation like the silo boilers and another start-up company that we backed? Is that really what we should be using our fund for? So I know it sounds very negative. I know it's always good to be able to help these people, but I'm not sure if our residents' money is there as investment angels.
That, I think, possibly is a question for Councillor Hookway. Would you be able to answer that?
Right, thank you. Yes, I was just trying to get the, but if you have a look at the supporting document, you will see that a number of KPIs have been set forward for Screen Devon. Yes, it was certainly set up very recently. there is a great opportunity. As I say, there's a lot of people there. The guy who's running it knows what he's doing. Clearly, on the long run, if it's not successful, we'll have to think again. But there is very significant potential there. If you get one big film, the spin-off in jobs and finance to this council is significant. As I said, I wish I could give you some figures of the first film that was made, but unfortunately we are bound by contract. I can't do that. When the film is released and we are free from those restrictions, then I will pass that on and you can see. So the potential is significant. If we can actually make this work, and there is demand out there for people. People are always looking for new locations. Some people in the film industry are very interested in Devon. They think it's got fantastic locations, but it's about getting a coordinated approach so that a film producer comes to one group, one person that says, I want to film in Devon. They don't have to deal with all different councils, they just deal with one person, and that then coordinates and organises it. So the potential is very significant. If it comes off, the potential for our young people working in film is also very significant. So I absolutely take your point. It is going to be monitored very closely, and hopefully, it will deliver something significant. And I keep on using that word significant because I think that's really what it is. Thank you, Chair.
So I hope that answers your question, Councillor Brown. Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Councillor Bruce, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm with Councillor Davey. Quite why the film company for that programme went off to Fairlight Cove in Hastings to film cliffs when we've got perfectly good cliffs at Sidmouth, which I find fascinating anyway. I was involved in something a couple of years ago on the Purbeck along a similar vein, and it might be interesting to note that in a 2-week period of filming, the area that we were in took in £280,000 in 2 weeks. So that's pretty impressive. And also, back in Thanet, since I left, we've had something like 4 Hollywood films made in that area. And it just shows that once the ball is rolling, these producers, when they see areas exposed, will come back and have another look around. So I think an initial start is very important, but it has a potential to growth.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. I know that Cornwall seems to benefit a very great deal from the film industry and from dramatisations of things that we're not even particularly aware of, like Rosamund Pilcher books bring a lot of German tourism to the area. Right, Councillor Jess Bailey, you're up next, please.
Thank you. I don't necessarily disagree with this proposal, but I am slightly concerned that we're focusing perhaps too much on this. And I'd like to know what's happening with other really important things like our community grants panel to help our village halls. So if we don't have thriving village halls, then there'll be nowhere for these screenings, for the screenings proposed. And I sit on the community grants panel. It did really, really good work supporting our village halls. And I don't think it's met for 2 years. And I have raised this with officers. So I'd like to know, please, what's happening with that. I don't disagree with this proposal, but I think we need to look after our villages as much as we're doing supporting this proposal here. Thank you.
I do believe that Councillor Ledger might have a partial answer to this.
So we brought a report to the last cabinet meeting that was agreed for 190,000 in community grants. We had our poverty day here in the council where we announced that to the VCSE sector. They're going to help the council decide on how those funds are balanced and how they're handed out, and that will be reported back to council.
So can I just ask, so is the community grants panel, has it been disbanded?
I don't think that's the case, no. Councillor Ledger?
No, that's not the case, no.
Oh, I think Melanie would like to come in at this point.
No.
No?
I would just echo what Councillor Ledger said. No, that panel very much will be meeting to consider that particular issue. So, yeah, they will be progressing.
So I hope that answers your question, Councillor Bailey. Okay, Councillor Barlow, you are next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Much as the Villages in Action is obviously brilliant, the £10,000 to the film thing, I mean, it is a bit of a punt. At the end of the day, you're believing that a company is going to set up and is going to do what it says. But Councillor Hookway is very right. You know, if you get one, then it is worth it. So it is a bit of a punt. I would just like to say that as long as everyone else, and I said this at the meeting, as long as everyone else is putting in their share of the £72,000, and it isn't, we put ours in, but no one else bothered to put theirs in, so therefore it didn't do anything. That would be the only thing I was concerned about. And the other bit was, perhaps Councillor Hookway could just say to us, even though he can't give a figure, that what we got out of the last film was more than £10,000.
Councillor Hookway, I don't know if you're going to be able to address the second question, but the first question, maybe you can. Trying to reformulate it now. No.
I'm not clear on the first question. Can you repeat the first question, please?
So the first question, Councillor Barlow, help me out here. I had it in my mind until the last bit.
The first part was basically that we're not the only one putting our money.
Oh,
in the pot.
yes, that was it. So that the funding is sort of everybody's dependent on every. Yeah.
Yes, my understanding is that there are 7 councils across Devon who are at present have put in £10,000 each. Okay, and in answer to your second question, I can say that yes. Yes, is the answer. And we also got, and the important point, the really important point, which I can say is that we received, the officers who went above and beyond what they normally did were complimented and given very positive feedback. And that was important. So I'm sorry to be cryptic. I promise you that when we can give you information, we will do that.
So I hope that slightly cloaked response answers your question, Councillor Barlow. Okay. Does that answer your question as fully as can be? Okay. Right. Councillor Sam Hawkins, you're up next, please, and then Councillor Loudon.
Thank you. It's just 2 points. Firstly, the finance comment to this item spoke about it not being in the budget that's coming up, a later item, which we're under each a legal duty to ensure is balanced. So just wanted clarity that if we're doing a quick adjustment to a budget, do we need to find 15k from something else to fund this? And secondly, it's already been touched on about Screen Devon being less than 12 months old, but I've also noticed that Companies House is not up to date with its filing requirements. So would ask that any release of funds would be subject to bringing its filings up to date so that the registrar of companies doesn't just strike it off the next day after we've given them some money.
A worthy request, I think. So Simon, are you able to answer Sam's first question?
Yes, it's because of the timing this request came through was after the draft budget went through our various committees. So it doesn't affect the budget that's later for debate, in that this is a request to come from the general fund balance, so it'll be met from a balance.
And as to your second question, I think Councillor Hookway, are you able to impose that as a condition, that they actually get their filing up to date?
Sorry, I was looking at the report. What was the second?
So Councillor Hawkins said that on Companies House, their filing is not up to date and should be up to date, and maybe we shouldn't give them some money until their filing is up to date.
I will ask the cultural producer to chase that up.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Hawkins? Okay, thank you. Thank you for a very actuarial question. It's great. Councillor Loudon, you're next, please.
I just wanted to be helpful to Councillor Bailey. If she looks at agenda item 9 and the minutes of the 5th of February Cabinet meeting and goes to minute 142, I think it is, there's the item there that we've accepted already on community grants.
Did you get the references for that, Councillor Bailey? It's the Cabinet meeting of the 5th of February. 159, did you say? 142, minute 142. Please do come back in if you have a further question on that, though. Does anybody have any more questions about this item? I'm not seeing any great appetite in the room. So, oh, Councillor Johns, last minute, under the door.
I know, sorry. With reference to what was discussed just now, Companies House, etc., can we make that a condition of this recommendation? So that we recommend that they have the money, etc., but on the condition that their filing is up to date, etc. I just think that if Councillor Hawkins has raised that as a concern, it needs to be something that's actually addressed and not just noted.
I think the monitoring officer would like to come in on this, Councillor Johns.
I'd prefer if we didn't. That makes it incredibly public, bearing in mind. You will have our assurance as officers, all the relevant officers, that clearly we will make that a condition if that's what members are seeking.
Councillor Hawkins, you want to come back in, please?
Only to comment that it is already public information broadcasted by the government, so it's well rehearsed as a Companies Act thing.
You are absolutely right. I'm just slightly uncomfortable with it, but if members want that added, then clearly you can.
Councillor Johns, was that a recommendation to make an amendment?
Yes, I think so, because it's public money we're using, and we need to make sure that it's covered financially with the conditions, etc., that are put in place.
Right. So, would something, Councillor Arnott, do you want to intervene on that specific point?
Well, only I completely get where Councillor Johns is coming from. The problem with that, and I get what Councillor Hawkins is saying as well, we must be in a contractual position with dozens, possibly hundreds of different companies, and we obviously have to do due diligence on them. But if you looked up every single one of them to see whether their filing is up to date or not, it might be disappointing. And I take the monitoring officer's point here. It could be a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Since what we know about it is it hasn't really started yet fully, I can understand, not excuse, why perhaps their filing isn't up to date. It's just difficult, isn't it? I think we've had an assurance from the monitoring officer that our officers will follow that through. But if we add it onto the recommendations, it looks like we're making a federal case out of it. And do we want to do that? That's all. Sam's right, it's already public domain. But do we actually want to say, it's almost as if we're sort of putting them on the naughty step from the start. It's just a comment, that's all.
Right. So, I'm trying to find a solution that kind of satisfies the monitoring officer as well here. If we could find out, yeah. So let's take Councillor Burrup, because he may have some insights.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have too many insights. I listened carefully to what the leader said, but I actually have sympathy with Councillor Johns, and I would like to second her recommendation for an amendment. If we are distributing public funds, we should be careful where that is distributed to. It is, in inverted commas, only £10,000. However, it is £10,000 of public funds, and as Councillor Hawkins has alluded, it is not beyond the wit of man for Companies House to foreclose on a company that is behind with its filings. So we should be ensuring at this stage, given that they are not compliant with company law right now, that they become compliant before we actually advance a grant, in my opinion.
Right. Councillor Johns, for the sake of clarity, do you think you might be able to repeat the amendment that you want to basically add, the little addition you want to make?
Probably not. Yeah, basically, I think it needs to be a condition of the money that we're going to grant them, that they're up to date with.
Yeah, no, we understand the concept. We just need a form of words to be able to put it into the recommendation.
Well, that's what I was doing.
Okay, sorry.
So, yeah, I would put that, part of the agreement is, so I would just add to what's already there, saying that, we're happy with the grant, etc. However, we would expect them to be up to date with all of their legal dealings that they have to do. Companies House is a legal requirement. It's not just something you can pick and choose.
Statutory.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow's very kindly given me the word statutory requirement.
Okay. So something subject to statutory obligations being abided by, something like that.
Companies House obligations.
So subject to Companies House obligations.
Company being up to date with the statutory.
Yes, Chair, I've written down, subject to the company being up to date with their statutory Companies House obligations.
Thank you. If that works, does that sound acceptable, Councillor Hawkins, as a sort of, does it cover bases, do you think? Okay, got a thumbs up from Councillor Hawkins. So Councillor Johns, are you happy with that wording? Okay, Councillor Johns is happy with that wording. Would anybody like to second that amendment? Oh, Councillor Burrett, you've already seconded. Okay, right. So we had a proposer and a seconder for the original recommendation. We've now had an amendment. So who was the proposer? Councillor Hookway. Councillor Hookway, are you willing to accept that amendment?
I'm afraid I can't accept the amendment. I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's going to have any benefit at all. The cultural producer and the officers that Sarah works with in the economic unit are very good at monitoring spend and whether organisations are fit and proper. And they've had great experience of that through the Share Prosperity Fund over the last couple of years. I personally don't think this amendment is needed. I absolutely accept that we need to be very careful and make sure that the money is spent correctly. That will happen, but I don't think this amendment will help. I think it may well slow things down and may result in missed opportunities. That's my real concern. So.
Okay, I think the monitoring officer wishes to come in at this point.
So, members, so you've got a proposer and seconder for that amendment, so you now need to vote as to whether that becomes part of the substantive motion.
So because the proposer didn't accept the amendment, we're now going to vote on whether or not the amendment gets rolled into the original recommendation or not. So if you are in favour of the wording as proposed by Councillor Johns and as seconded by Councillor Burropp, be included into the recommendation, would you please raise your hand now? And we may have to count actually, so can you keep your hand up? Make it 25. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
So that's 27 in favour. Thank you. You can lower your hands. If you're against including that amendment, will you please raise your hands now? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11, I make it. 12. 12.
Yeah, 12.
12. And if you'd like to abstain on that, would you please raise your hand now? 9, 10. 2 done here.
So, Chair, that now becomes part of the substantive motion. So I'm not sure if you finished the debate, but if you have, then you can now go to the vote on the amended recommendation.
Right, so the amendment is now incorporated into the recommendation. Does anybody else wish to intervene on this item? Right, I'm not seeing any appetite for anybody coming back in. It means that the recommendation that you have in your papers is now amended by that addition, and we are now going to go to a vote on it. So if you are in favour of the recommendation as amended, will you please raise your hand now? I think, yeah. And if you are against it, would you please raise your hand now? And if you want to abstain, please raise your hand now. Councillor, thank you very much, very clearly carried. I think Councillor Johns, you may have voted twice. Once for and once against. 3 times, okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much, everybody. So that's clearly carried. Thank you very much for that. Now, moving on to recommendations from Strategic Planning, which is agenda item 15, pages 227 to 238 in your agenda pack, please. Where are we? And it is the new plan, the local development scheme policy, and I'm going to invite the portfolio holder, Councillor Todd Olive, to present his report and his recommendations, please.
Thank you, Chair. If you just give me one moment, because I was expecting item 14 rather than item 15. So,
You arrived,
yes,
we'd already
I
done
was
the Cranbrook.
late. Apologies again. Yes,
Sorry.
Chair. No, it's fine. I have it in front of me now. This is a procedural report following publication of the new National Planning Policy Framework in December. The government required us to produce an updated local development scheme. The changes are extremely minor, and I'm happy to propose the recommendations that are in front of you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Olive. Does anybody wish to second that? Councillor Collins, Bethany Collins, please, you're seconding. Right, any questions, any debate wanted? Oh, Councillor Gazard, please.
Thank you, Chair. Could you just clarify for me, Todd, please? There's a lot of confusion out there with the general public. They think that they can actually put objections in against allotted sites. My understanding is that they can't do that. It's got to be a legal reason. Am I correct in thinking that, or am I wrong, please?
Councillor Olive, please.
I can try to answer that question for you, Chair. The answer is yes and no, I'm afraid, Councillor Gazard, in the sense that yes, objections at the Regulation 19 consultation stage need to be related to the soundness of the plan, which is fundamentally a legal test set out in the relevant legislation. But equally, problems with individual sites can go towards the soundness of the plan. So that's where the yes and no sort of comes in, if that sort of non-answer is at all helpful, Chair.
I think it may be vaguely helpful. Councillor Gazard, is that vaguely helpful?
Yes, it's helpful to me, so I'll take it that they can, if they want to, object to a site, but have to give the reasons why.
Councillor Olive?
Yes, and I believe there's some guidance on the website to that effect as well.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions about this? No, in which case I think we will, were we seconded on this? Who seconded? I can't remember. Yes, of course, Councillor Bethany Collins. Right, since we have a proposer and a seconder and the recommendation, thankfully, is not amended, would you please, if you are in favour of the recommendation, to endorse the report, which will take immediately effect, would you please raise your hand now? Thank you. If you're against it, please raise your hand now. And if you wish to abstain, please raise your hand now. That's very largely carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Right, what time is it? How are we doing? Right, 7:40. I think if we still, we may have a break at 8 o'clock, I think, maybe after this item, because there's a couple of motions coming forward, and I think we will need a break, a quick comfort break. Where are we? Item 16 in your pack, which is pages 239 to 242, please. I'm going to invite Councillor Burrup to present this report and propose the recommendation, please.
Thank you, Chair. I refer Council to the Audit and Governance meeting minutes of the 27th of November 2024, and that's on pages 154 to 163 for those who wish to follow that. In those minutes, minute 31 and 33 refer, at which point we announced the disclaiming of, or Grant Thornton's disclaiming of opinion in the accounts for years 21 and 22 and 22-23. The A&G minutes of the 27th of January 25 further went on to announce that they will also be disclaiming their opinion for the 23-24 accounts, on the basis that the audit was not successfully completed in time. The deadline for completion is actually this Friday, 28th of February, and it was agreed by all parties concerned that that could not be achieved. There are ramifications to this, especially with this year's accounts, so 24-25 accounts, which is the year that we are in right now. And it's a disappointing situation in all truth. But the truth is that the next, or this coming year's accounts, the best that can possibly happen is that we end up with a set of qualified accounts for this year as well. And that's because we're starting from a position of unverified balances in our accounts. So this is 3 years in a trot that we will have had no audit opinion for these accounts. And that position will continue until Grant Thornton can attain assurance in the starting positions or the balances of our accounts. The Section 151 officers' report is on, as we say, page 239, and there's quite a clear analysis there that was also debated at length at the A&G meeting last week. So minutes of that will be available in due course. The reasons for being unable to achieve the audit this year were also debated, but largely put down to us unfortunately starting the process probably too late in the day. The accounts were late to be published online. The associated papers were probably late to be made available and were of probably inadequate quality to the satisfaction of our auditors, which begged questions. We were then stymied by resource issues, with 3 out of 9 finance positions being currently vacant. And this all sort of snowballed at the same time as budgets were trying to be set in October, November, and therefore time ran out. So this is an unfortunate and disappointing state of affairs, the learning from which will feed into the next year's audit. Grant Thornton provided a full report of the status of the audit, which was again reviewed at last week's meeting on the 20th of February. There are ramifications in terms of people who are aware of what this really means. So it has reputational issues for the council, and I actually found this earlier on this week when I attended my own parish council's meeting, where they questioned, do we know what our balances will be for local government reorganisation? So if you are raising that, that is a challenge that will be thrown at you. That said, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to put our house in order, and but the Audit and Governance Committee resolved to bring this matter to full council for full disclosure, and that's why I'm doing it now. So I'll take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Borup. So are there any questions for Councillor Borup? Are there any questions for our Section 151 officer, Simon Davey? Okay, right. So, well, thank you for that report, Chris. Right, does anybody wish to second the recommendation, which is to note the contents of the report from Grant Thornton? Okay, no, the recommendation was that we may be made aware of the position, and we have been made aware. So is this something we need to vote on, Melanie?
It is effectively for noting, isn't it? I'm looking at Simon just to confirm.
Yes, it's bringing the information to council to make them aware of it.
So it simply is for noting, Chair.
So we don't need to vote on it, no. So you have been made aware of this. If nobody has any questions on this, then we merely thank the portfolio holder and the officers and move on then, I guess. Okay, I can't see anybody wanting to ask any questions. Right, well, thank you very much for that information, and we will move on to item 17, please. which is a recommendation from Cabinet. I will get there in a minute. It's the Treasury Management Strategy for 25-26, and I believe this is going to be introduced by Councillor Sam Hawkins, please, who's also going to propose the recommendations. Thank you, Sam. Take it away.
Thank you. These are key documents for approval and form part of our annual budget setting, which is item 19 on the agenda. Sitting at the top of these documents for your approval is the capital strategy, which dictates how we will manage and govern capital expenditure investment decisions. This then links to the other key documents being approved. The Treasury Management Strategy, which governs our strategy on investments and borrowing and contains prudential indicators which evidence key performance measures, including the affordability of borrowing. The Annual Investment Strategy details how we will manage investments and who we will invest with. And finally, the MRP statement, which determines how we make appropriate charges to revenue for the cost of capital. I'm happy to propose these recommendations, and if anyone's got any questions, our Section 151 officer sat in the corner there.
Trying very hard to hide, maybe. I don't know. Does anybody have any questions for either Councillor Hawkins or Simon Davey? No? Okay. Right. Then in that case, we can vote on this. I guess we can take them all in one go, can't we, Mel? Oh, sorry, we do need a seconder. Sorry. Who would like to second it? Councillor Levine is seconding, I think. So we have we have one 3-part item and one 2-part one single part recommendation, and they're all in your papers. So if you are happy to, we're just accepting these, aren't we? To accept, okay, if you're happy to adopt these various statements and strategies and approve them, thank you. Would you please raise your hand now? And if you want to reject them, would you please raise your hand now? And if you want to abstain, please raise your hand now, and that is very largely carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Right, item 18, which in your agenda pack is pages 292 to 298, and it is the Council Tax Reduction Scheme, and it is going to be introduced yet again by Councillor Sam Hawkins, please, who is also going to propose the recommendations. Sam, take it away.
Yep, this is our council tax reduction scheme, essentially roll forward from the previous scheme, but it's a requirement that we make the scheme each year. So I'd just like to propose the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. We have one recommendation, which is the council tax reduction scheme for working age residents is approved 25-26. Do we have a seconder on that? Oh, Councillor Dumper would like to second. Okay, so we have a seconder. Are there any questions? Would you like to debate this? No, I'm not seeing any appetite for debating this. Okay, let's move straight to a vote then. If you are in favour of accepting this recommendation that we approve the scheme, would you please raise your hand now? Thank you. And if you want to reject it, would you please raise your hand now? And if you want to abstain, please raise your hand now. And that is unanimous. Thank you. Right, agenda item, we're getting there, especially if I find the right page in my documents. Right, agenda item 19, please, which is pages 299 to 308, and is the council tax resolution for 25-26. So I have to say some words at this point. So please note that under section 106 of the Local Government Act of 1992? Okay, any member who is 2 months or more in arrears with council tax payments must declare the fact and not vote at any meeting at which budget or council tax matters are being discussed. So if you are in this situation, you will be advised probably to leave the room now. We do not believe that anybody's in that situation because, yeah, it would be embarrassing. Sorry. Right, I'm now going to invite the portfolio holder of finance, Councillor Sam Hawkins, to present his report and propose his recommendations. Please, Sam, take it away again.
Thank you. This is the big ticket item for tonight, and this report brings the 25-26 budget to council for approval and sets the council tax for the district. I first of all would like to thank everyone who's been involved in that process, including all members throughout various meetings, and very much all the officers have had to deal with it, probably across the whole council, but specifically the finance team, which obviously takes up a big proportion of work throughout the year. The budget's been recommended through to this stage by Cabinet Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the Housing Review Board, and a balanced budget is being put forward for your support, and therefore I propose that we approve the formal council tax resolutions as are set out in Appendix A of the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hawkins. Now, does anybody have any questions at this point, or shall I ask for a seconder? No, I'm going to ask for a seconder then, please. Councillor Jeffries, I think you'd like to second. So Councillor Jeffries put his keen hand up first, so he is seconding. Right, does anybody wish to debate the contents of this report? Do you have any questions? Do you have any ideas you want to share? No? No? Okay. Right, then we can move to voting on it. And the recommendation that you have in your agenda pack is to approve the formal council tax resolution listed at Appendix A. So if you are in favour of approving that...
Sorry, Chair, we need to take a recorded vote, as it is the budget and it's a legal requirement that we take a recorded vote. So if you're happy, Chair, I will read out the names and Andrew will take down.
I am extremely happy, Mel, and I think I should have said some words at this point, so I may just say the words just so that we're completely square. Right. I'm sorry, it's going to be a little bit boring in legalese. I need to confirm that in accordance with Regulation 12, the Local Authority Standing Orders England Amendment Regulations 2014, a recorded vote will be taken at a budget decision meeting. I will invite the Democratic Services Manager, who's Andrew Malhuish, to call out your name, and please indicate whether you are for, against, or wish to abstain. The recorded vote will be set out in the minutes of this meeting. And I'm now going to hand over to Andrew, who's going to run the recorded vote in alphabetical order. Thank you, Andrew.
And I'm very sorry, but you're not handing over to Andrew, you're handing over to
me. Apparently I'm handing over to Melanie.
I will call out the names if I may, and Andrew will note down whether you're for, against or abstaining, please, members. So starting with Councillor Arnott.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Aurora Bailey.
For.
Councillor Brian Bailey.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Jess Bailey.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Barlow.
For.
Councillor Kevin Blakey.
For.
Councillor Kim Bloxham.
For.
Councillor Violet Bonetta.
For.
Councillor Colin Brown.
For.
Councillor Jenny Brown.
For.
Councillor Bruce.
For.
Councillor Burrup.
For.
Councillor Chapman.
For.
Councillor Chubb.
For.
Councillor Collins. Sorry, Councillor Bethany Collins.
For.
Councillor Roy Collins.
Abstain.
Councillor Davey.
For.
Councillor Dumper.
For.
Councillor Faithful.
For.
Councillor Fernley.
For.
Councillor Gazzard.
For.
Councillor Haggerty.
For.
Councillor Anne Hall.
For.
Councillor Matt Hall.
For.
Councillor Hartnell.
For.
Councillor Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Hayward.
For.
Councillor Heath.
For.
Councillor Hookway.
For.
Councillor Hughes.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Jeffries.
For.
Councillor Johns.
For.
Councillor Young.
For.
Councillor Ledger.
For.
Councillor Levine.
For.
Councillor Loudon.
For.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor Nicholas.
For.
Councillor O'Leary.
For.
Councillor Olive.
For.
Councillor Parr.
For.
Councillor Richards. Oh, not present. Councillor Riddell.
For.
Councillor Rickson.
For.
Councillor Rylance.
For.
Councillor Toy.
For.
Councillor Westerman.
For.
And last but not least, Councillor Whibley.
Or.
Thank you, members, very much. We'll just add that up.
Totting it all up. The Wurlitzer has emerged from the floor. It's very close. Yeah. Nail-biting stuff.
Thank you very much, Chair. Pleased to confirm that the recorded vote is concluded and there were 48 votes in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much, Andrew and Mel. Right. So that is carried, very clearly carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 20, which is pages 309 to 313. And that is the calendar of upcoming meetings from May onwards. You'll have seen the calendar. Who is introducing it? Councillor Loudon, would you like to introduce the calendar, please?
Yes, Chair. Forgive me, I've got a very lengthy set of comments to make here. I move.
Whoa, okay, that nearly passed me by. Right, thank you very much for that extremely swift proposal. Does anybody wish to second the calendar? Councillor Bruce is seconding. You're very keen with the seconding today, Councillor Bruce. Right, would anybody like to ask any questions or debate? Councillor Jess Bailey, please, yeah.
Can I ask, please, what consideration has been given to the scheduling of meetings with regard to school holidays and half terms?
I think you may have just got me onto my soapbox, Councillor Bailey.
Because I'm looking at this, I haven't gone through it all, but for instance, full council's meeting on the 18th of February 2026, which I think is in half term.
John, please.
This is a perennial issue, isn't it? And it's an incredibly difficult one. And the problem that we've got is trying to create the matrix of meetings so that they're scheduled. And the difficulty comes if we try to avoid half terms, if we try to avoid evenings, if we try to avoid daytimes, we find ourselves in some difficulty. So we have tried the best that we can in order to do this. And I have sympathy with this, but I'm afraid what we have is the best that we can deliver in the circumstances.
Can I respond to that, please?
Yes, please do, Councillor Bailey.
I think that's all fair enough, but I think considering we only have a handful of full council meetings, I think at the very least they should not be in school holidays. I mean, I understand that there are, you know, loads and loads of meetings, but I think we should make every effort to try and be an inclusive council and not schedule our full council meetings when parents with and grandparents with responsibilities for childcare won't be able to attend. Thank you.
And teachers, indeed. Councillor Whibley, you have a comment on this, please.
Sorry, Richard. Yeah, just another perennial thing at this point. How much closer are we to being able to carry out hybrid meetings? Because that would make life a lot easier. If there is a daytime meeting, I can potentially, for, you know, in my personal situation working in the school, I can potentially get away for an hour to attend a meeting. I can't spend 3 or 4 hours travelling here to get into a meeting. So in terms of the system we've got set up here and we're using now, how much closer are we to being able to go down that route?
That is a good and adjacent question, I believe. Okay, Andrew, you may have an answer for us on this.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. The ability to use hybrid is being tested at the moment. We are experiencing a number of technical issues, so we are working with our contractors on those. Hopefully the testing will continue, be able to continue once that issue has been resolved, and we will be in a position to be able to go hybrid in the not too distant future. I don't want to put a date on it at the moment because we have had a number of technical problems with the equipment in the chamber. So we've resolved a majority of those, and we are nearly there. And the team are starting to do some training, and then we will invite members in to do some training and obviously develop a protocol so that councillors and members of the public are able to participate either in person or remotely.
Thank you, Andrew. If we could loop back, please, to the first question of Councillor Bailey's, which was about scheduling meetings in the middle of school holidays, which members will know has been a personal soapbox of mine for some time. And the reason we're meeting today rather than last week is because of that. So
I rely on my previous answer, Chair.
Okay. Sometimes it's unavoidable, apparently, to not have a council meeting because the deadlines are dictated by things that are outside our control. So, for example, I think the April full council meeting is in the middle of the Easter holidays, and that is regrettable to me and to any other parent or teacher or anybody else involved in education. But it is dictated by the various deadlines in May, I understand. And also, the Easter holidays are not always in April, is another small problem, minor problem. Mel, do you want to comment on this?
All I was going to say is obviously as part of this process, we do try and consider a lot of those factors. But as you can imagine, you've got a cycle of meetings that each feed into each other. I've obviously picked up the point about full council meetings and whether we can avoid school holidays. I mean, we can clearly look at that, but obviously we then have to consider the knock-on effect on other committees. But you approving today doesn't prevent us obviously changing 1 or 2 meetings over the year, as we sometimes have to do in any event. So I would just, you know, we're more than happy to look, but just please do bear in mind it is a very difficult thing to put together in the first place.
So please do rest assured, Councillor Bailey, that I do always request that meetings not be held in school holidays, because I have personal experience of how difficult it is to hold meetings when we only get a limited number of times a year to be with our children who are on holiday. Councillor Ledger, do you want to come in on this?
Yes, just taking on board the actual recommendation coming forward. It says that there is going to be discussion with the chair, so if that is possible to change certain meeting dates, that could be picked up as part of the recommendation that's already coming forward.
So if looking forward, we realise that there are dates that fall into school holidays, it's not set in absolute stone, I think is what is emerging from this conversation. And indeed, we are meeting this week, not last week. Right. Andrew, so does everybody feel like they have asked enough questions? Have we had a seconder? I can't remember. Who's second? Oh, yes. Always Councillor Bruce. Right, we've had a debate. Does anybody want to say anything more or ask any more questions? Okay, so subject to the proviso that obviously we can request that particular meetings not be held in particular weeks, if that's at all possible. Are you happy to vote on this calendar of meetings for the upcoming year? Okay, so if you wish to vote in favour of this calendar, would you please raise your hand now? If you wish to reject the calendar, please raise your hand now. And if you wish to abstain, please raise your hand now. And that, I think, is unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. Would this be a good time? Okay, so I perceive that we've been going for 2 hours now, which people may need a bit of a leg stretch. So I'm going to call a 5-minute break now. Can you please be back here for 10 past? Thank you. 2 minutes, please, everybody. 2 minutes. You can carry on chatting for the next 2 minutes. It's fine. You don't have to be quiet. O'clock. So if you could take your seats again, please, that would be great. I think I've just jinxed it. Come on, everybody. You were all ready 2 minutes ago, and now nobody's sitting down. Come on, come on, come on. Back to your chairs, please. If you want to go home at 9 o'clock, we have to start again, I'm afraid. Right, everybody, take your chairs, please. I've been instructed to behave teacherly, which is going to really annoy some people. Thank you, Councillor Collins. I will thank you to stop sniggering. Alistair, come on, come on, come on. We need to get back to the fray. Come on, come on. Nick, Nick. Naming and shaming now. Right, how are we doing for the feed, Andrew?
Yeah, the feed's fine. The feed continues.
Okay, so we're still on, are we? Right, well, welcome back, everybody, after your short leg stretch. Right, we're moving on now to our notice of motions, and goodness help us. So agenda item 21, which in your papers is pages 314 to 316. We have a notice of motion proposed by Councillor Jeffreys. Councillor Jeffreys, would you like to launch into your motion, please?
Lovely, thank you, Chair. And thank you to all for considering this motion. Since this has been published, I've been contacted by fellow councillors and residents with many questions and concerns about broadband, especially in rural areas. I thought I might just throw a couple of examples of the questions that have come my way. There's people very concerned about, this is for the reasons of needing to plan for where they live and what they do, to know when broadband is going to get to them. So the scope, they need to know specific postcodes, and residences that will or won't be rolled out to, so that they can plan their lives. Councillor Rickson was good enough to send me some information about 4G connectivity as well, although it's not strictly fibre broadband related. It was about a question about 4G signal not being as good as it used to be in her area, and this is important as well to lots of people in rural areas who rely on 4G signal for their connection to broadband, or use it if they have an unreliable connection as a backup. I've also been contacted about a recent price hike for those who have been connected recently to fibre broadband, who believed that they'd signed up for a lifelong half-price offer that's just been ended. So I'm hoping that the letters written by the portfolio holder for Economy and Assets and the leader will get responses that answer these concerns, give us a better picture of where we are and what needs to be done. I'm concerned at a time when connectivity is essential to life, and over a year on from money returned by BT to DCC not being reinvested in rural broadband, we find ourselves in a situation where rollout is stalling rather than accelerating. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries. And some of us can but dream of fibre broadband, a distant, far off mirage of what could be possible. Right. So the motion has been put. It's been seconded by Councillor Hayward. Councillor Hayward, would you like to speak at this point, or would you like to wait until later? Councillor Hayward, please speak.
Yeah, very briefly, Chair. I mean, this is a sort of a RON seal motion. It does exactly what it says on the tin here. Between 2019 and 2023, I represented Yardley Ward, my sort of first elected role in East Devon, and not a week went past at parish council meetings without issues of rural broadband connectivity and lack of connectivity being raised, because it stymies the rural economy, it adversely affects rural living, and reliable and usable broadband is no longer a nicety. It's a tenet of modern life. It's a key facility: heating, electricity, gas, water, fuel. It's there. It's an essential service. We also now see things like analogue telephony is being phased out. We've seen that with discussions here about home care services. And if you phase out analogue telephony in opposition to digital, you're leaving residents behind. You're leaving residents at risk, and you're just making them isolated. We have enough social isolation and detachment in East Devon. We don't want to exacerbate that. Another issue, Sky, if you choose to have Sky, other services are available. Sky dishes are being removed. They're being just made obsolete because telephony is going to provide those services. So if you if you happen to be someone who enjoys, Sky TV or other services, once your dish goes, you need a broadband service. Well, a broadband service of 15 kilobytes per second, you're not going to be able to watch anything. So essentially you are having your choice removed from you. And these are just examples of how, and we all know this, of how people are affected, how our communities are affected. And so I was delighted to support and second this motion because it's important and it needs to be given a focus. And I know within the motion, item 1 is that it asks for me to write, and I'll be happy to write to town and parish councils to seek that evidence, and to write to the Minister of Telecoms and all our MPs who I have across the political spectrum have high regard for and have a good working relationship with. So I hope they'll take our message forward. So I can't see any reason why council would vote against this, and I'll be delighted to track the debate and with your forbearance, if need be, have another bite of the cherry, but I appreciate you might not want to.
We'll see how we're feeling by 11:30, Councillor Hayward. Right, Councillor Bruce, you wanted to come in on this, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Hayward was my ward councillor the last time, and I can concur with what he said. To give you an example, my broadband today was 2.5, and my upload was 0.3. So it is atrocious. I've got some very nice videos on here that I'd really like to put down the line. They just will not go. So yes, I fully support this as much as I can. Just one note of interest was when we had the BT disconnect situation coming up, I contacted our MP, and the wires got crossed because instead of getting a letter back from BT, I got a letter back from Openreach saying we're not coming to your area anymore for the next 5 years, which was not the answer to the question I asked. But I did get hold of BT, who said that provided I am only on copper wire, they will not switch me over. So until I have an alternative, which I suspect has something to do with the homes, they will not turn you off. They have to offer you an option. If you've just got the wire, they won't do anything. They'll pass you by. Thank you, Chair.
That is quite a strange state of affairs, really, isn't it? Right. Does anybody else wish to ask any questions? Councillor Rickson, please.
I would just like to, a straw poll perhaps. Can anybody here raise their hands if they've got very poor broadband connection? And could I ask the same question for those who find mobile connection is poor in their area? So as you can see, mobile is also badly affected, and I would like this notice of motion to take that into account as well. I personally affected on the outskirts of Sidford, where the connection listed by Ofcom is limited, and calls drop out all the time. So could we possibly amend this notice of motion to include mobile as well, please?
Do you have a form of words in mind, Councillor Rickson?
No, perhaps just to say, number B, it says recognising the critical importance of broadband and mobile connectivity for accessing everyday services, blah, blah, blah. Would that cover it?
Thank you. That seems appropriate. So, Councillor Jeffreys, would you be willing to accept that addition?
Partly, yes. I think I'd like to keep this mostly about broadband and rollout of fibre, and perhaps suggest that we looked at that as a separate issue. That would be what I'd be minded to do. Or they are both connected, but there's so many things that come into connectivity, and there's some muddying of the waters there if we're starting to look at 4G as an I don't know if it's an alternative or if it's a completely separate thing. And if we're looking at an alternative, I think most people in rural areas need proper broadband, not a stopgap. So there's something.
Yeah, I do see your point, but for some people in some areas, 4G is what they can get. And if you'd seen the first week of lockdown, when we suddenly had to work from home, the things that my husband and I had to do to carry on working from home, like sitting in trees essentially to get a 4G signal, it was not amusing. Thankfully, slightly resolved, but we're definitely not at the standards of any 2025 yet, as anybody who's ever been in a Zoom meeting with me will know. So are you actually you're saying you're not going to accept Councillor Rickson's amendment there?
Could we have some kind of wording that says the main feature of this is to look at broadband fibre rollout, and that will be a side issue, or perhaps Paul has better.
So pushing for those things rather than making do with 4G.
And if that's an important thing to bring back, the mobile connectivity, because I think that they are two separate things.
Okay.
Where we can bring that back as a separate.
Councillor Rickson, do you agree with Councillor Jeffreys on that?
I'm happy to back down if he doesn't want that, because I don't want there to be a prolonged debate.
Okay. Yeah, from your mouth to everybody's ears. Right. So Councillor Rickson has backed down now. Paul A would like to come in. Councillor Arnott.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes, just reading through the report, and I note something which I hadn't known about a clawback in Devon County. I don't know whether the proposer or the seconder have got more information on that or some background on that.
Councillor Jeffreys, do you have any background information on that?
I read about it in the press over a year ago that there was a process of clawback from BT, who were provided with public money to roll out broadband. And as that was taken up by more people than was expected, excess money was passed back to the county councils. And in some instances across the country, that was spent on broadband. But in the case of Devon County, it was chosen to spend that on the general fund, I believe.
Thank you.
Right, does that answer your question, Councillor Arnott? Okay, thank you. Councillor Hartnell, you're next, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I largely can support this this notice of motion, with the exception of point F, where it refers to the clawback that Councillor Arnott just alluded to. So I think it's recognising that whilst a political decision was made by Devon to not reinvest that money in broadband, I think it recognising the financial situation of the county council needing to balance its books and the extreme pressure they were under with, and still are under, with special educational needs, etc. Budgets that are really different. You know, tough decisions have to be made, the same as this authority made tough decisions around public toilet facilities, for example. I think it's a shame that point F is within the motion, because it's something I could support if it wasn't there. And I think it would send a much more powerful message if it was a united council that got behind this, rather than putting in a paragraph there that has a little bit of a dig at a political decision, which we can all do with various decisions that are made by councils. And unfortunately, we're elected to make those tough decisions. So I just find it's a shame I can't support it because of that paragraph. But otherwise, I think it's a really good motion, and it's certainly a frustration of mine. I live in Axmouth. Our broadband is very poor. It drops out frequently. It's very frustrating. So that's my 2 pence. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hartnell. Councillor Barlow, please, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. I know it's election time coming up, and so that we have to listen to these sort of things, but what do we actually think we're going to achieve? This is my point. Yes, we can talk about it. Yes, we can say it. Devon County Council is the authority that makes this decision. Yes, it's taken £7 million back. But as you said, if you've got to do a choice between looking after children and looking after elderly people, or looking after broadband, what are you going to do? As it's been pointed out, we've done the same with toilets. We're going to do the same with our housing stock in a minute. So before we start throwing stones, I do think we need to be a little bit careful. I totally agree. It needs fixing, but this is a government problem, really. And certainly, I know everyone wants to be elected in a minute, and we're going to hear a lot of this. We've already heard some of it, and we've got another one coming up in a minute about potholes. But really, this is just wasting our resources rather than actually getting on and doing things that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. You will have ample opportunity to vote on this at the end. Councillor Hayward, please.
Thank you. I suppose on the first issue, I'm grateful to Councillor Rickson for sort of perhaps allowing a bit of a stay on coming back to the issue of 4G. It is important. I've got a letter here, which I pulled off my notice board earlier, from 2023. I won't embarrass the network company that wrote it to me by naming them, but this was when I questioned in Axminster why you could not get a signal in Axminster of this particular operator. And it's because their mast wasn't working. They knew it wasn't working. It hadn't been working for 2 years. 2 years later, it's still not working. So for 4 years, they've been taking fees from every single customer of theirs in Axminster, knowing full well they can't deliver a 4G service. 3G is problematic at times. About 5 years ago, I was in Sardinia. Slap bang in the middle of the Mediterranean. 5G everywhere, 5G everywhere, as a matter of course. And yet, in mainland UK, in a tourist area, you can't even offer 3G. It's just ridiculous. So I'd be very happy to work with Councillor Rickson and others to take that forward, but I think it would dilute this. This is a specific thing about broadband in rural areas. So again, I'm grateful to Councillor Rickson. On Councillor Barlow's point, it's a waste of our time. Well, we're here anyway, and eventually the core of it is there are 2 suggestions, the 2 requests for myself to write something and for the leader. Well, I'm happy to give up my time to write that if council decides to support this. I don't consider it a waste of my time. So on that score, I'll leave it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. I mean, I've been on this council for 8 years now, and we have been discussing rural broadband for at least that length of time. So it's not a new subject, I would say. Councillor Burrup, you're next, please.
Thank you. My main point was answered actually by Councillor Hartnell. Thank you. but also in terms of 4G, we have similar issues in Newton Popperford where there is very limited 4G availability. So much so that in some areas of Newton Popperford, you basically restricted to one provider if you're lucky, and that begs the question as to why anybody else should be paying fees for any other signal. I think it is worthy of a separate motion though, and I would suggest that the two are kept separate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Jackson, you're next, please.
Thank you. Just picking up on the previously made point about point F in this motion, I would ask that members don't get too caught up and hung up on that. Actually, the important bits are points 1 and 2, and the bits within those. They're the actions that we're, looking at having to make a decision on, and they're the bits that are going to be the most important to our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Young, please.
Yeah, seeing that Devon biggest industry is agriculture and farming, most farmers spend a lot of time filling out forms that are on the internet. I don't know how some of them manage. I believe they have to go to their accountants in Exeter or wherever to be able to fill out those forms, and it is totally ridiculous.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Fair point. Councillor Arnott, you're next, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes, very briefly, just to confirm, I've been asked to take two actions. One is to try and put something together akin to the Devon Water Summit, and the other is to write to James at Devon County to express disappointment. And going to Councillor Barlow's point, well done. It's election period, but you see, we are elected democratic representatives. Now, all but 5 of the Conservatives have disappeared. They're obviously not particularly interested in either of these debates, but we have every right to debate matters like this without being scoffed and scorned at by a member for daring to do so. This has been a running sore for as long as I've been a district councillor. And as Councillor Young says, it's not just people, who want to work from home, doing something based on artificial intelligence. It's farmers too. We represent all of them, and so I'll be voting for this motion. Thank you, Chair.
And children doing homework in the evening, and people finishing off paperwork. It's just endless. Banking, everything. Right. Last, possibly but not least, Councillor Hookway, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm very disappointed that some members have run down the importance of broadband. Broadband is, and the ability to access good broadband is something that affects everybody across the age spectrum, from school kids right up to people in their 80s and 90s. It is absolutely crucial to economic development. Everybody, whether they like it or not, is going online and working online. And we as a county are losing out on economic development because of inadequate and unthought through decisions taken many years ago. If you compare what goes on in Cornwall, what happened in Cornwall, Cornwall was wired up for broadband years before Devon was. I don't know about Somerset and Dorset, but Cornwall certainly was a very good case study of how it should be done. The fact that we still haven't got broadband across the entire county is a really appalling situation, and we need to be, I think, much more critical about the situation. It is a priority, in my view, if we are to achieve economic growth in Devon as a whole. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hookway. And I believe I was in a meeting the other day where it was mentioned that we have an extremely high proportion of very small companies in East Devon. So quite often people working from home or working with a few employees, a limited number of employees.
Well, content creation is a major growth area, right? In Devon, that's going to be really tough.
And as everybody said, modern life requires broadband. Councillor Jenny Brown, please.
Hi there. Yeah, a couple of things. I don't think anybody has actually said run down the need for broadband. It is so important. Having had a hotel in Moncton and trying to run a business with very, very mediocre broadband when you've got guests actually wanting to come and do work from there. And we are a county of small and medium enterprises that rely on broadband. So I'm totally in favour of this. I agree, I'm not happy with F, because it's not only Devon County, it was Devon and Somerset. And they both had this money that they were supposed to be putting into this, and both decided to move it off elsewhere. But there is funding coming back in again now from the BD UK, and I think there's GigaClear or Gigabit vouchers coming out again. So people, because we got our broadband with GigaClear on a voucher. And so there is these vouchers coming out again. But I just take umbrage that we're actually picking fault with Devon. It was bigger than Devon and Somerset. It was an enormous ask to get all this rolled out. Every company that came in trying to do it went bust or decided they couldn't do it. They'd do the easy bits and leave all the little villages where it was harder to get into. So I'm totally in favour of this, but I do not think it's good having a bit of name calling going on. And I just, no.
I mean, I don't think there's been any name calling.
I find it hard.
Brown.
I totally agree with it, but I just don't think F should be in there. I think it's unnecessary. And if you want this unanimous, I think it would be a nice gesture if it was to be taken out.
Okay. Councillor Aurora Bailey, please, and then Councillor Colin Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to put something else in it. I support this. You've got people that are at home that can't get out. They've got disabilities, are unable to go out. So they need the broadband for ordering shopping, just something simple. So I'm in favour of this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Colin Brown, please.
Yeah, both Devon and Somerset were included in this broadband money that went astray and went into, I mean, Somerset used it to balance their books. Because Somerset used it to balance books, Devon done the same and used it for child services. It's as simple as that. But the government have now come in and they're investing $5 billion in a project gigabit procurement and management centrally by BD UK, which is Broadband Delivery UK. But it doesn't leave any scope for local authorities to invest in broadband if the government come in.
Okay.
But there is a scheme out there, this is coming in. This is
There is a
£5 billion
scheme
from central government that's coming in to try and get the broadband sorted out.
Maybe we need to get this circulated to all members because I've heard about it for the first time this evening, and it's something that I could mention to parishes. Councillor Olive and then Councillor Haggerty, please. Oh no, Councillor Heath. Sorry, saw the wrong arm. You're both wearing navy blue jumpers. Councillor Olive first, I think. Oh, Councillor Jeffreys, sorry. Councillor Jeffreys, do you want to come in ahead of Councillor Olive?
It was just to mention that Project Gigabit was used a year ago. I'm sorry to go back to the clawback thing, but it was used as the justification for not spending that money on rural broadband as Project Gigabit was coming along. That's what I read. And we're over a year later, and I don't believe there's any detail on when Project Gigabit is going to turn up. So it still seems like a rather nebulous thing that last I checked a while back, and there were a few Project Gigabit projects going on, but some of them looked jolly close to London, and there was a big bit around the southwest where there wasn't anything. So that doesn't really give me sort of a warm fuzzy feeling inside. And on the note of clawback, I can see why those mechanisms are there when money is handed down centrally to be used for something specific locally. But I think probably everybody was thinking at the beginning that this job would be done or jolly nearly done by the time that it was legal to spend that money on something else when it came back. And it puts people in a difficult position when it did come back that it got to that term. So that's why it's in there. And the job obviously isn't done yet. And I think any money that's for that, as we've heard all the benefits of having broadband universally available for people, and it really affects people's lives when it isn't available, and makes a complete two-tier system. So I stand by it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. What I'm hearing from the room is that some of us are still waiting for Councillor Project Megabit, not just Councillor Project Gigabit. Councillor Loudon had a point of order he wanted to make, I think.
Chair, in light of the fact that we've been spending half an hour on this motion, we have another one which I fear will spend equally as long on, and we still have a part B to hear, which is of equal value. I move that the motion be put. Question be put.
So Councillor Loudon has moved that the question be put. Who's seconding? Sorry. Oh, I'm not going to pick you again, Councillor Bruce. Oh, Councillor Barlow. Okay, Councillor Barlow is also anxious to move on from this. Okay, so we are going to vote on this now. Okay, so if you are in favour of passing this motion with all its recommendations and its requests as listed, would you please raise your hand now? And if you are against it, would you please raise your hand now? And if you wish to abstain, please raise your hand now. And thank you, that is largely carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, moving on to the item 22, the motion on get there in a minute. Motion on notice, I'm getting tired, on highways. Right, that is pages 317 to 319 in your agenda pack. And I'm going to invite Councillor Arnott to present this motion, please.
Well, I could just say, let the motion be put, I suppose. That might be that would probably be the most popular thing in the room, but I'll be incredibly brief, Chair. 2024, vintage year. I hope you're all listening. Young Luke Littler, 17-year-old darts champion, that was 2024. Post office scandal, that was 2024. The Willy Wonka chocolate experience in Glasgow, where if you went, you walked into an empty warehouse with a couple of Mars bars on the table. But 2024 was also a vintage year for potholes. One might almost say sometimes crevices, craters. Sometimes I wondered if there was a rift that would allow me to see the mantle of the earth as I drove around the Axe Valley. And it's made me become an extremely skilled driver as I weaved round these various obvious risks to my tyres. But fair enough, I thought. It's tricky doing all this, isn't it, at Devon County? And I do understand that. And really, it only came to me at the beginning of this month that I had to do something here. I sat in a meeting of Collerton Parish Council, and it was reported that many of our roads, not all of them, but many of our streets were being newly tarmacked, which I think goes to, with respect, Councillor Barlow's point that other people noticed it was election time as well. But there they were, various holes being patched up. But what was extraordinary at that exact same meeting was we got a notice that Dolphin Street, one of the beneficiaries of this patching, was going to be dug up in May by the National Grid to install a new connection. And at that point, I realised something is terminally wrong here. We wait years for these holes to be filled, and 3 months later, somebody's going to come along and dig them up. Chair, I'm not going to say anything more than that. I think the motion is self-evident, and I'd be very happy if my seconder wished to say more on it. Thank you, Chair.
So, Councillor Hookway, a seconder, do you have more to say?
Yes, Chair, I shall attempt to be concise in my support of the motion. I feel that it's high time that this issue is debated by Council. In terms of planning consultations, Devon Highways' response is often so out of kilter with common sense that no one seems to be able to accept or justify these responses. Even at planning committee, I've heard and seen Devon County Council councillors unable to support their own officers' recommendations. East Devon has always had inadequate roads, in my view, but the state of these roads is clearly deteriorating. Potholes, block gullies, poor services are now the norm, not only in rural areas, but also in residential streets such as Exmouth. Residents expect better and they deserve better. Road maintenance is clearly poorly managed. Defects do not appear to be assessed by Devon Highways, but instead rely upon residents reporting such issues. Recent repair schemes have been chaotic, with poor consultation with residents and contractors changing the work schedule as they see fit. Judging by the number of repairs that have to be continually redone, matters have got worse. Excuses that are given about inadequate road maintenance, such as poor weather conditions, are no longer acceptable in my view. Also, I'm particularly concerned about the impact on poorly maintained roads upon the tourism sector and the perception of our district as a place that doesn't actually care for its environment. So concerns over the lack of consultation and a response to residents' concerns over speeding traffic also indicate a service that is out of touch, poorly managed, and probably unfit for purpose. I therefore urge you to support the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hookway. Right, we have a few people who wish to speak. First up, Councillor Bruce, and then Councillor Rickson, was it? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I note with interest that Councillor Arnott is fast becoming a geologist, advocating plate tectonics. I just got a couple of points to make. I have been accused in my local area of almost becoming a serial pothole reporter. And I have to say, in the last 6 months, I've seen a step change in the speed with which potholes have been repaired. In fact, on one occasion, I had 2 quite close to where I live reported and repaired in under 3 days. That's really positive, and it sends a great message to the residents, and I always tell them, get on the map and do it yourself. They don't always do it. However, it's not perfect. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. There was one occasion, I think it was last year, when the road from Honiton to Chard, so basically the old Chard Road, was marked up with over 70 white lines and numbers. And when I asked when this was going to happen, the answer from Highways came back that apparently a member of the public had gone out and done the work as a sort of vigilante. It eventually turned not to be the case, and actually Highways were irresponsible for it. And also coming here tonight, I went past a series of potholes, one of which had been beautifully repaired, cut out nice and square and repaired, and yet the one that was 2 feet away was left. So what I would advocate is that there needs to be a bit more work done in as such that we have a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach, which seems to be the case at the moment. So if we have road inspectors going out and they see a road hole, put it in themselves. Don't rely on the public to send it in, which is what I'm apparently being told to do. Because I know in other counties, they do actually incentivize road repair teams who do come across these to photograph them, send them into the office, get authority to repair them. They've got all the kit there, they can get it done nice and quickly, and it's a cost saving. It's got to be a cost saving somewhere because you've got the team there already, you've got the kit there already, rather than to go away and have to come out as a separate job. Now, the one I passed tonight is just such a case, because someone is now going to have to come out at a later date, perhaps when it's a little deeper, because it's not going to get any shallower, and repair it. So why couldn't they have done it at the same time? Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
As a fellow serial pothole reporter, I share your frustration. And if anybody else is in the business of reporting potholes, please report everyone, even if it's in the same place practically, because that way they get looked at. Right, Councillor Rickson, you're next, please.
I just wanted to agree with Councillor Bruce. He's made the point that I was going to make about the lunacy of coming out to repair one pothole. 6 are already appearing further down the road and no action is taken until some mysterious later date. But I also would like another straw poll. How many people here present have had to get their tyres repaired, tyres repaired on their vehicles because of potholes? So I hope that Councillor Hughes is taking note of this and that perhaps some real action will be taken. Is there any quality control? That's what I would like to know, because how can you have a road which has been repaired and very short time thereafter, the same holes reappear? In fact, just up the road where Councillor Hughes lives, just above Temple Street, some holes were repaired about a year ago. The same holes have reappeared. Suddenly they've got the blob of something put in them, but that's only temporary, because we know that when there's bad weather again, they'll all come out again.
Thank you, Councillor Rickson. I know this is a source of immense frustration to all of us, and I'm very conscious of the time, and I don't want to keep us here too late. So unless you have something stellar to bring to the debate, would you please resist the urge to voice your frustration in this forum, because we can just vote on the recommendations and voice, send our frustrations forward for them through the medium of these communications. So if you really don't need to speak when I call your name, please don't feel you have to. Councillor Colin Brown first, please.
Right. During the Cabinet meeting at Devon County Council on the 13th of November 2024, agenda item 11, pages 19 to 63, it was the further delivery model for the Highways Maintenance Service. It was widely recognised nationally that there is an underinvestment in highway works. The public available document Alarm Survey 2024 and the case for investing in highway maintenance provide national information on historical funding and the backlog of highways repairs and funding strategy required. These reports indicate the national backlog as of 2024 is in excess of 16.3 billion. There is an Alarm Survey 2024, that is the Asphalt Industry Alliance Annual Local Authority Road Maintenance Survey, that put the case for investing in highways maintenance that was produced by the UK Road Liaison Group.
Councillor Brown, could I ask you, do you have a new point coming forwards?
Well, yes, it's the fact that East Devon, not East Devon, Devon County are putting money into the highways. They're putting...
Well, they have to, it's one of their jobs.
Sorry?
It's one of their tasks, they have to.
Can you let him finish?
Yes, but please, can we, because it is nearly 9 o'clock and we still
Everybody has
have
the
quite
right
a
to
massive
speak
item.
on every item on the agenda.
Please.
We'll have shorter agendas.
Tone. Councillor Brown, please.
So what action is Devon County taking? In addition to the Department of Transport grants, they have provided 12 million of corporate funding for this financial year for investing in drainage, serviceability, road repairs and white lining. A further 4 million additional funding for pothole repairs has just been announced by Devon County Council in the next financial year. Devon County Council, along with other highways authorities, continues to work with the Department of Transport and constructively lobby Treasury with evidential need for added highway funding. The funding settlement for highways capital maintenance for the next financial year has been confirmed as 36% higher than received this year. The additional money is well received and planned to be invested in preventative maintenance programme with the aim to reduce defects on the network whilst addressing current drainage and surface repairs. Highways consultants made by East Devon to Devon County Highways are governed by the National Planning Framework Policy. A presentation and workshop entitled Highways Development Management Officers, who they are and what they do, was delivered to our council members on the 1st of June 2023. This presentation articulates the governance the officers work within and understand the County Council are more than happy to provide a fresh presentation. County are statutory consultees on planning applications, however East Devon are the determined body that make the final decision. In line with Devon's Corporate Plan Policy 5, the Highways Development Management Team are presenting a webinar to DELC and on the team function in April. And your concerns about introducing a 20 mile an hour speed limit zone. In Devon, there is already 190 zones in place. And there is opportunities for town and parishes to self-fund 20 mile an hour schemes through the community self-delivery and highway improvements.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I'm not entirely certain whose case you were putting there, but Councillor Roy Collins, please.
Thank you, Chair. Much of the problem is caused by water. A lot of gratings have been tarmacked over by contractors and never reinstated. And you'll find lots of these potholes, waters everywhere. I went to Collerton a fortnight ago, and Collerton is full of holes. And when you come out of Collerton,
So you could just clarify.
Order, please. Potholes, we're clear. Yeah.
When you come out of Collerton and you take the road to Sutton Thorn, which is known as the back road to Collerton, that was resurfaced 2 years ago, but they've done nothing about the water and the ditches. The new tarmac is all breaking up. It's only 2 years old, it's ridiculous. Devon County Council, up until probably 83, 84, they had direct labour force. And you had each town had a county council depot. We had one in Honiton, Dole Street. Colleton had a depot.
Yeah.
And
So-
they all had, and we had one at Upwatry. And all these depots, they had a foreman and you had 2 or 3 workmen. And each
Councillor
depot
Collins,
was judged by the way they
Councillor
maintained
Collins,
their road.
I'm sure we're all not insensitive to the way things used to be done and when there was a lot more funding. Things have changed now.
No.
I mean, local authorities had more money back in the 1980s, it's clear. We are having to cut our cloth very differently these days.
No,
But,
it's poorly maintained.
I think the poor maintenance is a
They
big
had
issue.
funding years ago, and they've had funding now, but it's all wasted on these old contractors. They're all strangers. You had people, most of the roadmen or linesmen, as they used to call them, they were ex-farm workers. They knew how to use a shovel. They knew how to rod the drains out and keep it clean. My wife's uncle, he was a linesman.
Councillor Collins,
And
Councillor
if we
Collins-
had heavy rain out there now, he'd be on his bike this time of night and he'd go out and keep all those gutters
As do
and
many
drains
members of the
clear.
public right now. You know, my husband is one of them. My husband is now known as the Rod Father locally. He rods the drains under the road.
Perhaps with this devolution, we might well come back to being local again and parish councils have their own workers. I know at Luppet, they use the
Councillor
local
Collins,
contractor to
we're
keep
loving
their
your
guys
stories.
in.
We absolutely adore your stories, but please, we really want to get out of this building at a sensible time. So please can we move on? But yes, there are things that possibly were done better some time ago. Councillor Burrock, please.
Follow that, as they say. But I do have a lot of sympathy for what Councillor Collins has been saying, because my father is a retired civil engineer, and he will attest that the quality of repairs, the quality of the initial build of roads these days is substandard and has deteriorated over many, many years. Particularly where HGV traffic is concerned, and HGV, as I recall from certain learning, is equivalent. One HGV is the equivalent to 100,000 road journeys by a car over the same piece of roadway. So where you have heavy traffic, in particular, that's where you see worst affected. I will be brief, Chair. You'll be pleased to hear. Just going back to the reporting of potholes that you alluded to, this is extremely important. We had one very recently that Councillor Hughes very kindly attended to very promptly once it was raised on social media and he was tagged in it. But that was reported on social media by 35 people. It was only reported on Devon County Council's website by one person at 10 o'clock at night. And that's after 6 vehicles had been damaged by the same pothole to the extent that they were pulled into the Bowd in car park with punctures on the same day. So people need to stop keyboard worrying on social media and actually get on and report the thing to the authorities that can do something about it. So that's my message there. But I do have sympathy. Thank you.
Okay, so I am mindful of the time, people, and we have several more items to go. If you do not have anything to add to this debate apart from frustration, which we all share, honestly, we all do share, and anybody who rides any vehicle or drives any vehicle will share it, please can you refrain from intervening at this point? So I've got a huge list of people who want to say something, but if it's not new, please don't feel you have to speak, because we can just have the actions by voting on them. So I'm going to run through this list. If you really don't think you're going to add anything, then please don't feel you have to speak just because I'm calling your name, okay? So Councillor Hayward.
That the motion be put, thank you.
Oh, hooray. Would anybody else like to second that? Okay, fantastic, right, wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. We all hate potholes. We all hate the state of the roads. It's a given. Right. If you are in favour of accepting this motion and the recommendations were in... Oh, Councillor Johns, you're waving your arm.
Yeah, I had a question actually, and I agree, we all hate the potholes, they're all a pain, etc., etc. My question was, point 1, part B, urgently reconsider its decision to continue with business as usual at the earliest possible opportunity, inviting genuine consultation with partner authorities and communities through the process. What's that about?
Councillor Jeffries,
Because the
what's
rest
it
of it's
about?
all about highways, and this bit I'm like...
Oh,
what's-
sorry, Councillor Arnott,
Yeah,
what's it about?
I'm not
Sorry.
sure what that is. Before I vote on it, I'd like to have clarifications to
Fair
exactly
enough.
what that part
Fair
is.
enough, fair enough. Councillor Arnott's going to explain it to us.
Yes, I think it was mentioned earlier, the idea that at the moment everything is outsourced and maybe some thinking needs to be done about bringing it in, so not business as usual.
That answers your question, Councillor Johns. Right, we have a proposer and a seconder to the question be put. Councillor Barlow, is it really crucial that you intervene at this point?
Well, I think it is.
But is it actually, then, objectively?
I think it, I just want to say, you know, it's again, we're criticising Devon County Council because it's that election time of year. And we all know there's potholes. There's been potholes for a long time. It's caused by many reasons. All I will say is if you come to Sidmouth, where we've tried to start to work with East Devon District Council, has a part to play in this, Devon County Council and the Town Council, to try and actually, report the holes into the right place, because as you say, everyone's on the keyboard warriors, that's what you need to do. Trying to get our actual street scene teams, when they're going around cleaning, to check if there are drains that are clogged, whatever, and see if they can report them at the same time. So I just think that we need to work together, and just slagging off another council is not really going to do us any good, other than if you're waiting to be elected.
I'm quite certain that clearing drains is a highways job, I think. Councillor Arnott.
It is a
just
highways
quickly.
job, but reporting it is not.
Councillor Arnott is going to come back in on this, and then we're going to go to the
I
vote.
had no doubt that there were holes in Sidmouth as well, and Councillor Barlow has just confirmed it. So the thing that we must understand is that, Ian, all councils do this. My council does this. We report it the whole time. Probably every person here who goes to their local parish or town council knows that the main public speaker each time will be the person trying to get potholes filled. So Sidmouth doesn't have a monopoly on this. My clerk reports things to Devon County, goes through Marcus, who is very helpful as well. So there's nothing unique in this. And also, I have to just say this, we are a political body and we are allowed perhaps once a year to talk politically. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. Right, we're going to put this to the vote now because I don't want to talk about it anymore. It just makes me cross. Right, if you are in favour of passing this motion with all its recommendations, would you please raise your hand now? If you are against passing the recommendation with all its motions, would you recommend... I'll start that again, shall I? It's getting late. If you are against passing this motion with all its recommendations, would you please raise your hand now? And if you'd like to abstain, would you please raise your hand now? And that's very widely carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Right, moving on to item 23, which in your agenda pack is pages 320 to 322. Independent Remuneration Panel and Audit and Governance Committee appointments. There are 2 people to be appointed. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Councillor Loudon, you're going to present the report and propose the recommendation, apparently. So there are 2 co-options. Just propose it. Okay. So the recommendation is that we appoint Charles Sumner.
I move.
He moves. Okay. Right. You second? Yes. Councillor Ledger is seconding. If you're in favour of these appointments, would you please raise your hand now? If you're against them, please raise your hand now. If you want to abstain, please raise your hand now. That's unanimously carried. Thank you very much. Item 24. Get there in a minute. There were no abstentions. There were no votes against. Item 24, 2 more appointments. One to the Devon Torbay Combined Authority Board and the Southwestern Energy Environment Group. So I'll just move them from the chair because I really can't be bothered. Yeah, past that. Right. So so the 2 recommendations. If you're in favour of them, would you please raise your hand now? If you're against them, please raise your hand now. If you want to abstain, raise your hand now. That's unanimous. Thank you. Right, now, at this point, we move to agenda item 25. And I have to move the following resolution. To pass a resolution that the press and public are excluded from the meeting under Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 on the basis that if they were present during the business to be transacted, there would be a likelihood of disclosure of exempt information within the meaning of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972 as the information relates to the finance or business affairs of any particular person. I am moving that, so I don't need to have a seconder on that. If you are in favour of moving into Part B, would you please raise your hands now? And if you are against, raise your hands now. And if you want to abstain, raise your hands now, and that is unanimous. So we are now going to say goodbye to the people watching online, and we're going to have it confirmed to us when we are no longer live.